I'm coming for all of you. Right now, there's a 15-year-old sophomore in high school who has no idea they're studying nursing just so they can wipe my ass in 17 years. I'm 50 and single. That's a fantastic combination. I'm going to spend my golden years dating a handful of spit and a jug of Astroglide.
Hey, what's happening? Mike Schmidt, 40-Year-Old Boy podcast. This is probably the 15th attempt at starting this fucking show. I'm not going to lie to you. I cannot get my mouth to work. I sound different, don't I? My voice sounds thick. And it sounds like the residue at the bottom of a cereal bowl, or if you cook down a balsamic vinegar really thick to make a glaze. I sound like I got a glaze in my throat, and I probably do have a glaze in my throat. I'm not gonna lie to you. Just before I went on the air today, I coughed up something that looked like a starfish fucked a bowl of tapioca pudding. It was disgusting. I don't know. It had shape. It had color. And nothing coming out of you should be that. It should just be nondescript, right? You should just cough something out of your lungs, and it just go right into the old toilet or into a fucking Kleenex. But I was like, it was just a standard like, ahem, and boom, this thing showed up, and I spit it out. And not only was it like I said, it was disgusting, and it was shaped like that, but then it had I guess I would say a vein. In a shrimp, you would call it a vein, like a thick line through it, like a dark line. In a shrimp, it would be a vein, and a clam would probably be the adductor muscle. But in a human, I guess I think it was my soul. That's probably what it was. I think I just coughed out my soul, folks. So that's going to make the show soul, folks. That's hard to say. Coughed out my soul, folks. Folks. It really makes you hit the L in folks if you say soul. I just go, because usually it's like folks. But then soul, folks, that's different. And by the way, I saw the Soul Folks open for the Commodores at a fair 2 years ago. Not great. The Commodores also did a 41-minute version of Machine Gun at that show. That seems weird, right? That seems long. Seems like a lot of time to devote to Machine Gun. They actually only did three songs when I was there. They did Machine Gun, and then, of course, they did Easy Like Sunday Morning. And then this made absolutely no sense at all. They did Come See About Me by the Supremes. And I was like, dude, if you're going to only 3 songs from your entire catalog, why would you cover a Motown song and then make that last 31 minutes? The Commodores did not think through this set list. Because, look, you're going to do 3 songs. That anticipates that you're just bailing. You're getting the fuck out of there. You're like, we're at a fair. We're going to get our checks. We're going to roll the fuck out of here. So you come in, maybe you throw a little brick house at people. You do that kind of thing. But instead, you do 2 of your hits, and then you do a fucking Supreme song? And like I said, if you can only do 3 songs and roll the fuck out, how do you do over 30-minute versions of each song? 41 minutes of Machine Gun, 31 minutes of the Supremes, and then 37 minutes of fucking Easy Like Sunday Morning, which I don't mind. I mean, it was except for the fact that 28 minutes of that was a crowd sing-along, which makes no sense at all for anybody when you're there at the show. I pay to see the Commodores, for fuck's sake. And let's do the math on that. That's almost an hour and 20 minutes of the Commodores, only 3 songs. That seems like the math's off on that. Hold on, let's figure it out. I'm sorry, pardon me, I have to cough up another sea creature. God damn it, what happened to my voice? But I don't just sound physically different. I know that. I sound different because I'm in a different place in my apartment. I fucking moved around. We're sitting at a table instead of my desk. We're completely facing the other way. I'm facing the east right now instead of the west. Normally I do the show facing west, so I'm staring directly into the ocean. But right now I'm looking toward the east, the far east. I'm looking toward Asia. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking toward North Korea. I'm looking toward those people. I'm looking toward Bangladesh, which I don't think is Far East. I think that's more... India's in Asia, right? No, India is a continent. You're the stupidest man alive. You know what? I didn't cough out my soul. I coughed out my sense of geography. That's what it was. I coughed out any sense of knowing what was east and what was west, what was up and what was down, what was here and what was there, what was near and what was far. Better call Grover. He knows. We love Grover, right? Get me a sandwich, Grover. That picture with the chips and that bald guy, the blue guy causing all the fucking problems. Charlie, the guy, doesn't want the sandwich. He sees on the picture. He wants the chips and the pickle and fuck. Unbelievable. What a sketch. What a sketch that was when Grover sat down and wrote that. He put pen into furry blue hand and then put furry blue hand to work, putting that pen to some scrappy Sesame Street paper he bought at Mr. Hooper's store. And he pitched the guys at Sesame Street on a sketch where he was a waiter. Which, of course, is a nonsense because we know Grover is a genius. He wouldn't be working in a restaurant somewhere, although he looked good in a blazer. Not gonna look. We can't take that away from him. That is a monster who looks good in a blazer. Not all of them do. Frankenstein, the fucking sleeves on that thing are crazy short. He's walking around thinking he's all Natalie attired and stuff. He's got the bolts that match with the fucking tie clip. But no, fuck you, man. If you got a short blazer, nobody cares about your bolts and your accessories. But, and so that blazer didn't look good. Dracula not wearing a blazer. He's got a cape on. He never wore a fucking jacket. It encumbered him because he turns into a bat. Hey, when Dracula turned into a bat, where'd his clothes go? Now that I think about that, I'm sure that's not a question that anybody's asked ever over the history of the world. I don't know why that just popped into my fucking brain. Literally, fucking Dracula spreads the cape out, and then voomp, he's a bat. Where do the clothes go? I mean, look, the Invisible Man is the same way. I mean, he turns into a fucking dude, and then he's got regular clothes on, and then he strips all naked. But then when he turns back, he's got clothes on, right? Or at least was that just part of the Hays Code? They wanted to make sure you didn't see a naked Invisible Man. The Invisible Naked Man. Wolfman, he wears clothes. Mummy, he's got bandages. Yeah, I think Dracula's the only one I have the clothes question about out of all of the Universal monsters. Creature from the Black Lagoon, no clothes. Although I'll venture to say this, would look good in a blazer. Dracula and the Creature from the Black Lagoon could pull off a blazer, and the Wolfman could pull off a blazer. Mummy could not, because he's got the bandages and stuff like that. I'm worried about this new table where we're sitting, because it keeps making periodically a noise that I think I can hear. If you're asking why I've moved locations in my apartment, I should tell you this. Over at my desk, my neighbor had his television up super loud, and in my head I'm like, well, people can't hear that, or maybe they can. So then I had to run some sound tests. I'm my own engineer, folks. Folks. I'm talking to you, folks. I coughed up my salad, folks. My mouth is dry too. I think I'm coming down with something. It's October, which is my favorite month, because you got playoff baseball, you got football, you got hockey starting, which is fantastic. And then, of course, you got the weather changing, and it's becoming like 70 degrees. And I've talked about that, my affinity for a breeze, having all the windows open and getting a chill in the air and sleeping with like 5 blankets while it's a little cold outside, and a caramel apple everything. And I buy it all, dude. I buy caramel apple soup. I buy a caramel apple creamer. I don't even fucking drink coffee. I just chug the creamer right out. Maybe that's why my voice is all thick, because I've been chugging caramel apple creamer for weeks and weeks. I buy caramel apple toilet paper. I know it sounds weird, but you can taste it, weirdly enough. You just get this essence in your colon of a caramel apple, and it wafts up into your mouth. Because I don't know if you know that your colon's connected. Shin bone's connected to the knee bone, and the arm bone's connected to the elbow bone, and then your colon's connected to your mouth. Although it's a circuitous route, it still wafts its way up, and it leaves it inside there. It's almost like lighting a scented candle, folks. If you light a scented candle in your house, and it fills the whole air, and then later on you're smelling it, you're like, man, I had a scented candle going in here about 4 hours ago, still can smell it. Well, so if you wipe your ass with caramel apple toilet paper, and it just drifts all the way up in your through your fucking colon, up and through your GI, your upper GI, your lower GI, through your Sergeant Rock, and then directly into your esophagus, and then directly into your nasal passage, you're just like, I'm getting a reverse olfactory caramel apple sensation. That would be the name of the show if I wanted to write it down. I can't stop down to write reverse olfactory caramel apple sensation. That just seems like a lot of fucking work. So we're now plenty into this experiment of me on the other side of the apartment. I hope you're still here. One of these days, I know I'm just waiting for the day one of my neighbors comes over and just knocks on the door, and he's like, dude, what? What are you doing? And I'll go, hey, this dude's got his TV cranked all the fuck up, and you guys go nuts at soccer games. So maybe that would be a thing. Although maybe they just like the show. Maybe they like getting it early. Maybe my neighbors enjoy hearing the show early, because they all know that's what I do, is I podcast. They walk by, they see a microphone on the desk, they're like, that guy's a pro, that guy's a hitter. I'm sure that's the discussion around the pool. All the young people here are wondering what the old man's doing with a fucking microphone in his house. Did you hear my chair? My chair just made a noise. I think everything's incidental, but then it's not. So anyway, I conducted an experiment over at my desk, and I opened up the microphones, and I cranked it up, and man, it totally caught the news. Like, you could hear it. Because then I went back and listened, and you heard the news report. And I didn't want you to have to listen, fucking distracting, and hear a news report behind me. I got to get some egg crates or something and fucking soundproof this apartment. That's what I got to do. Or I got to get a new producer. Who out there wants to apply for the job? Who wants me to come to their house every week and set this up and fucking talk to them? I just had a listener who wrote me. He's going to be here later in October. All right, I got to put this out to you guys, see if this is a possibility. I liked it. I thought about it. I think I'm going to do it. But we were joking around on the air, and we were like, remember, we said, hey, anybody who wants to come over and let me go to their house, and they'll laugh and everything will be fine, whatever. But this guy is a great friend of the show, Justin. And he's like, hey, man, I'm going to be in town late in October. If you want to get together one day, if you got to record on a Tuesday, I'll come over to your house and not laugh and just stare at you while you do it. And then we can go have dinner somewhere, because he has plans Tuesday with his coworkers. And I'm like, well, look, first of all, you got to cancel the plans with your fucking coworkers. Who am I? I'm the talent. You got to fucking set it all aside. I know you're coming to town for some sort of weird business meeting over 3 fucking days, but put it all on a shelf. Tell those guys you came here for business, but you got to go take care of some serious business in the valley, and you got to sit in an apartment facing the wrong fucking way. We got to go stare east. He's got it, because again, I'll tell you what, if Justin comes here to listen to the show, he sits right alongside me and stares the same way I'm staring. He can't sit directly across from me like a weird fucking one-on-one final table in poker. We're all in. I'm all in with jokes. He's all in with laughs, and we see who fucking takes it all and takes down the prize. What do they give at the World Series of Poker? Like, it's not a ring. Is it a ring or a medallion? They give some funky thing, like a barrette. I don't fucking know. If you win the World Series of Poker, you get some cool ass jewelry. That's all I know. That's seems like the weirdest thing in the world. Like, Super Bowl rings and shit. Like, I mean, men don't need rings unless there's fucking, Ric Flair. If you're fucking Ric Flair or the Rat Pack, it's the only men who should be wearing any kind of rings. Mex has like a fucking Aztec skull ring, and look, it's awesome looking. There's no doubt. But at the same time, you're 51. Why are you wearing an Aztec skull ring? Unless you were an Aztec and you wanted to strike fear into the hearts of the white man who showed up, and you wanted to go ahead and cut his head off or pour some molten gold down his throat, or do the disgusting thing that I read about where they make you a shit centrifuge. Have I talked about that on the air here? I'm sure I have. I don't know why anybody would ever forget the phrase shit centrifuge. They would pour liquid waste down the throats of like all the white dudes they caught, and then they would be shitting it out, and they would catch it, and then they would pour it down their throat again, and then they would just continue not. Oh, dude, I'll tell you, this is disgusting. This part is disgusting. I was watching Batman, 1966 Batman, and I'm going to go on the record right now as I pound on the table, which is different than my desk. I'm going to go on the record right now. I have two desks, too. You think I would have moved from desk to a desk, but instead I went to a table. This is like an antique hutch table, which is fine. All of this is furniture from my previous marriage that is still lurking in my goddamn house. And every time I bring my girlfriend over here, I just think to myself, well, this is weird, right? I mean, all of a sudden I got this stuff here lurking. I felt that way for years and years, and everybody's very nice. They're like, oh, please don't worry about it. Everybody. I've had a marched a never-ending fucking pile of chicks through here. Sure I have. Fuck. And even if you did bring home a chick to bang, would they go, hey man, where'd you get this desk? You know what I mean? That just seems like small talk that doesn't need to happen. I think it's more along the lines of, hey, how come you don't have a couch? Hey, why am I here in your poor house? What judgment have I done? Or even better, they just go, where am I? As they wake up out of a roofied stupor. Because I roofie stupid them with some reverse olfactory caramel apple sensations. That's what I call my microdots when I go out to the bar. Hey, would you like to try this reverse olfactory caramel apple sensation? Boom, and then roofie stupor happens. And then they wake up in my apartment staring at the ceiling with my sweat dripping in their eyes. And that's fun. That hit a little too close though. That sounded almost real. I'm sorry, I take that back. Let's forget I even spoke of that, folks. Because honestly, I might be high. There's a good chance I'm high. I won't lie to you, folks. I could be. There's a chance I am weeded out of my fucking mind still. I will get to an explanation why. Well, fuck, I don't need to explain anything. You know why? Because before every show, as we all know, I find an empty, an abandoned shower stall, and I bring Kathleen Quinlan in there, and we go and we fuck. And then an off-duty cop comes in and he says, hey, what are you guys doing here? And I'm like, hey, man, I'm the podcaster. I got the show I'm about to cut. And he maces me in the eyes and I fucking stagger around freaking out. And then I come out here and I try to do the podcast before the whole shit house goes up in flames. That's what I do with my life. God, I would rail Kathleen Quinlan, especially in the Doors. Doors Kathleen Quinlan, weird photography, blood drinking Kathleen Quinlan. Who the fuck wouldn't rail that chick? That's what it should be about. Now I'm on the backside here. I got 25 left. I just got to find insane chicks. But I mean like really insane. Not just like, weird drama insane. I mean, I got to find like fucking crazy, hey, let's sacrifice a goat girls. Are they out there? Are you out there? Is there a let's sacrifice a goat.com ladies, like farmers only? Let's sacrifice a goat only.com. It's a dating service for men who want to kill these fucking goats with ladies and then bathe in the blood in the moonlight because blood in the moonlight looks black, as you know. As we all know, look, blood in the moonlight is quite black, as Brian Cox as Lecter told us in Manhunter. So maybe let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and create that website. Let's kill a Golt. Let's kill a Golt. Let's kill a Galt. Let's kill a John Galt. That's what I want to do. Let's kill a JohnGalt.com. Ayn Rand is here, and that's the only person you'll meet at let'skilljohngalt.com. Let's kill a JohnGalt.com. I'm going to date Ayn Rand as if she wasn't depressed enough. As she wakes up out of her roofie stupor and tells me about capitalism and its failures. All right, so, hi. My throat, again, still thick voice, thick guy, thick man, thick with two C's. That drives me crazy when I see people like call themselves thick with two C's. Like ladies, because that's a whole thing. Everybody wants a thick lady. Like Christy Mack is thick. I follow her on Instagram and Snapchat, and she's just, her proportions are so fucking bananas. She looks like somebody, again, like somebody painted her, like drew her. She looks like one of the fucking, one of the African American women on the Jimmy Walker painting at the end of fucking Good Times, when there's kind of that huge backside and kind of tits and fucking, and Christy Mack's got blonde hair. I shouldn't even. I got to get Christy Mack's name out of my mouth, right? She's suffered enough. This poor woman has suffered enough in her goddamn life at the hands of fucking War Machine, any other countless number of fucking porn dudes. Although she was probably into that, she was making money, and she obviously enjoys sex. She was certainly having that happen. She's a carnal creature. I can tell you that about Christy Mack. But her Snapchat and her Instagram are interesting because she has, she's got these two pit bulls, and I don't think I've ever thought to myself, hey, that pit bull's cute, until I saw Christy Mack's pit bulls. And one of her dudes, brace yourselves, saccharine alert. If you have diabetes, be on high alert. You may want to take the spike for this one, because I'm about to tell you something that's going to make your blood sugar level go off the fucking charts. Do you know what Christy Mack's pit bull is named? Patrick Swayze. Holy macaroni, how gorgeous is that? That's like the cutest thing ever. Like if you had a girlfriend and she named her fucking dog and named it Patrick Swayze, you'd go, yeah, we're getting married. I'm never leaving you, because you've just come up with the coolest name and it's awesome. And not to mention the fact, Christy Mack, you're like, hey, I'm going to marry you. You're awesome. You named your dog Patrick Swayze. By the way, when I saw you get railed by those 5 dudes and they were spitting in your mouth, oh my God, yeah, that was also as cute as you naming the dog. You can do it all. Get you a Mac who can do both, who can name her pit bull a very cute name that makes you go, aw, and then who can gape and show you exactly what's up inside of her as you go ahead and put reverse olfactory caramel appendizations on your cock and plunge it into her from the back. And then she's just like, wow, that smells delicious. That smells terrific. Yeah, I would say terrific rather than delicious. Nothing smells. I don't like the word delicious anyway. I've talked about that many times on the show. Many times, every week. That's what it is. I thought of changing the name, actually, to Never Delicious with Mike Schmidt. Because I want my name in the title now, because I'm so tired of people going, the 40-year-old boy, are you going to change it? Are you 40? What's going on? Duh. And so, no, Never Delicious with Mike Schmidt. There's your new name. I should write that down. That should be a possibility. But again, I don't want to fucking write anything. I just want to stop recording this and go rail Kathleen Quinlan some more and have another cop spray me in the goddamn face with mace so that I can get you guys riled up. And then I'll hold that goat. That's what exactly. Someone will throw me a goat from the audience, and there'll be a shaman running around, and then I'll think back to my dad dying in a goddamn car accident, or was it a shaman who died in a car accident? I saw his spirit, and he followed me around for the rest of my life. And then me, Billy Idol, and Michael Madsen would kill a fucking turkey. We'll stomp it to fucking death. We'll stomp it into a living death. That's a Ken Shamrock thing. Go Google it. Ken Shamrock told Tito Ortiz he was going to beat him into a living death. He was trying to, trash talk or intimidate him or scare him. And look, Tito Ortiz is just a fucking lunkhead. That guy's just, his whole head is made of ground beef. So you weren't going to get through to him and intimidate him or scare him in any weird way. And also the funny thing was, I think Shamrock, that might have been before their second fight. I think they fought 3 times. But in the first fight, Tito Ortiz, he fucking put Ken Shamrock through a La Machine. It was just ground and pound city, and Shamrock was just coughing up blood for months. I may have overdiagnosed that. It might have been just that night, but he was getting a bad beating at the hands of Tito Ortiz. And then I think before the second fight, he's like, I will beat you into a living death. And I'm like, do you seem to forget that he opened a fucking Mississippi River-sized chasm across your face and blood was gushing all over the goddamn joint? And look, I don't mean to question the credentials of a Ken Shamrock. He was the world's most dangerous man, and at least that was told to me by many ring announcers across many matches. And also he fought in Pancrase. Man, you don't want to fucking deal with those dudes who fought in Pancrase. That's insane, man. The fucking Shamrock brothers and Suzuki and all these other fucking dudes, Takayama, man, who the fuck wants to get in there and slap the shit out of those dudes? Because those are real fights. Like, they were worked fights, but they were real fights. So guys are in there slapping each other in the fucking face and punching each other and hurting each other. I fell into a YouTube hole of like stiff workers and watching guys hurt one another in the goddamn ring. And it's always in Japan. There's always some beef, and the Yakuza gets involved. And then Lucy Liu orders a hit on somebody, and somebody kicks a guy in the balls, and then he runs away from the ring. He's like, I'm leaving, because then the officials come in and try to break it up. It's fucking weird. Harley Race used to do that shit. And Ken Hodge. These are really like notorious fucking tough guys. I'm sorry, I just opened my water to drink, but I wind up talking, so I had to put the cap back on. You probably fucking heard it. But these were notorious tough guys who would stretch a dude. They were known in the territories as guys who would stretch you if you got out of line, and they would fucking they would put you in if you owed the promoter money or you were a jagoff, you had to fight Ken Hodge in that city or Harley Race, and they would fuck you up like for real because people want to fucking shit on pro wrestling and say it's bad, but in reality, those guys are the toughest motherfuckers in the world. I mean, they were MMA before MMA was cool. They just happened to have to fucking arrange it in a certain way where it looked like a ballet. But then you get back into the locker room, and those guys wanted to fuck everybody up and just drinking beer and driving. Ric Flair tells stories about riding with fucking Dick Murdoch and Harley Race in a giant Lincoln Continental through the fucking Rockies as they drank beer and laughed. And he said he's in the back seat. He's like, I wanted to jump out. I thought I was going to fucking die. I may have gotten the mountain range wrong. I may have gotten one of the wrestlers wrong. But that story's still apocryphal, but also true. Is that possible? Can something be true and apocryphal? You know what? It was more true-apocryphal. I've just created a word. That story is true-apocryphal. And you know who I love? True-apocryphal Shakur. Oh my God, the best rapper who ever lived, best wrestler who ever lived. That's a rapping wrestler. True-apocryphal Shakur. He's terrific. You don't want any piece of him. All holds on him. All holds on me. All eyes on me. I tried to make it work. I don't know if I did. I have to drink water. Shut up. See, in the old days, I could drink water and I could point at Lily and she could vamp. Or I could, cut. I should have cut there. I probably could have cut. It was silent enough. All you heard was a glug, glug, glug. Let's go back to my jug where we can drink it all night. Dude, I actually snort laughed there. That kind of made me laugh. Glug, glug, glug. Let's go back to my jug where we can drink it all night. All right, I think I wanted to bring you some information about Ken Shamrock. No, I don't. I don't know how he found his way into the goddamn show, but he did. Good to see the world's most dangerous man making an appearance. No, what I wanted to tell you was a few things. One, man, I think, folks, I might be high. I think my lungs are, still my throat. I haven't felt right since a couple of days ago, Monday, to be honest. And look, this is going to be a vague story, but a story nonetheless, because I can't name names, I can't talk about specific places, but I can tell you things that happened. Monday, well, first of all, the weekend was a big deal because I went to Podfest, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that the Podfest occurred this past weekend? A phenomenal fucking time for everybody involved. Not me, I didn't go, but I saw online that a bunch of people said it was fantastic. They were talking amongst themselves. I should throw this out there. Hi, all the new people who told me they would listen to the show this week, but absolutely are not listening to the show this week. Hi to all the new people I met in the hallway of a hotel, and they said, oh my fucking God, you were hilarious. Where have you been my whole life? And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm here, and I'm here every goddamn Thursday. You can tune into the goddamn show. And I said goddamn 4 times. And they went, you know what, why are we even in a conversation with this guy? He blasphemes and he swears. You can't hold on a conversation without saying goddamn. And I say, well, who the fuck, why wouldn't I? I'm Uma Thurman. I'm fucking, Marcellus Wallace's girlfriend in the fucking bed, or wife. I apologize. They bumped it up. I forgot about the fucking wedding. How could I forget about that wedding? Tony Rocca Horror fucking, he wound up rubbing Marcellus Wallace's wife's feet and then got thrown out of a goddamn window. Smashed down on a greenhouse. Motherfucker fell through that. That's one of my favorite lines in Pulp Fiction. There's a greenhouse down there. Motherfucker fell through that. The fucking accentuation on it. The only thing and the only thing Marcellus's wife ever touched of Tony's was, I should call her Mia Wallace. Why? See, I'm even scared to use her name because I know what happened to Tony Rocca Horror. But the only thing she ever touched of Tony's was his hand when she shook it at his wedding. I mean, that's what she told my friend Vince, but I don't know if I believe that, quite frankly, because again, I don't know if you heard, they threw Tony through a fucking third floor window, and there was a greenhouse at the bottom. Motherfucker fell through that. This table's making noise and it fucking drives me crazy. Still noise? No? All right. So Monday, folks, Monday came along and I had business to take care of all day. Well, no, we're talking about Podfest. That's exactly what we're doing. See, the Wallaces spun me the fuck off and I got away from Podfest. I'll talk about Podfest first. I don't know what gets talked about first. I'll talk about Podfest. You don't want to hear how high I am. Well, the fucking whole week. Let's talk about Podfest week because it is truly, Podfest is my favorite weekend of the year. I've talked about it many times on this show. I get to meet a lot of you who come out and say hello to me, and that's my favorite thing in the world. And then I get to perform. And look, I will not lie. I have a love-hate relationship with performing. I love doing it. I hate the preparation. I hate sitting down and having to figure out what I'm going to do because my brain now is fried and it doesn't focus very well. And everybody has been very nice and said, Mike, you got to take Adderall. Mike, you got to take Ritalin. Mike, you got to take Ritalin. Mike, you got to take Adolin. And all of those sound like fantastic solutions, and I might try them eventually in the future. But now, for the time being, I'm just going to go with the good old-fashioned grab yourself by the bootstraps and don't do anything till the last minute. That's how I like to work my life. Case in point, last week. So let's start from the beginning here of last week. Well, not from the beginning. That's from the very beginning. Let's talk about from the time right when I hung up the show with you guys, because I call you. I do it on the phone. That's usually what I do. I hung up. Click. Did you hang up on me? I didn't. I just said click. Well, then why are you still here? Click. All right. So, folks, that's from Student Bodies. Horsehead bookends, folks. So, Jesus fucking Christ. This is just a melange. You know, I asked last week, I'm like, who comes for the circuitous stories? And I think listener BJ Fenn and two other people said, I do. I think Alan Miller and perhaps Liana Dixon, who's a good friend of mine, said, we're here for those stories. That's three out of, I know what I know to be thousands of listeners. Three people decided to swoop into my Facebook fan club page and say, hey, we're here for the circuitous stories. And I'll tell you what, there's a good chance if you were here for the circuitous stories, you will wind up in the body of a circuitous story. Hold on, my mouth. God, I need a whole new face. My fucking mouth and coughing up lungs and shit. What the fuck? Well, I did cough out my soul, so I mean, this is really not on me. It's not my fault, folks. Podfest last week. You know, people come to town and they're like, hey man, let's hang out, let's do a thing, let's do some stuff. And it's become an old home week because there are people who have come every single year and I meet them and hang out to the point now that they're sick of me. They don't want to come to my show. They don't want to see me. There'll be people who they'll come to Podfest and they're like, yeah, dude, it's awesome to see you. And I'll go, are you coming to the show tomorrow? I can't. You're up against anything. You're up against open restroom. And I couldn't possibly pass that up with no line for the restroom. I can't watch your show. I'm sorry. I have to go in there and kill 2 hours. But people are very nice. Everybody's lovely, and they come up to me in the hallways and they talk to me, and I enjoy talking to everybody and seeing people, particularly my great friend Heidi and my great friend Mel. They come out to the show. They've been at Podfest all 6 years, and there's a tradition that's been established. On Thursdays, we go for sushi. And I told you guys that it was going to be a sushi thing, and some of you seized upon it, and most of you did not. But the people who were in town, some people don't get to town on Thursday, they get to town on Friday, right the morning of Podfest, and they swoop right into Podfest action, climb into a phone booth and change into their Podfest costume. It's fantastic. I'm Podfest man, or I'm Super Podfest. I guess Podfest man. Well, you can be Super Podfest, whatever you can be, whatever you want to be. Change into a costume. I don't give a fuck. Just make sure you use a phone booth, which guarantees that you will never change into a costume because there are no more phone booths left, as I talked about at another show. If there's any phone booths left now, don't put any money in them because you're going to wind up getting chased by Trinity and fucking Neo. That's the only reason a phone booth would exist. Thursday, I went to sushi with the lovely Heidi, the lovely Mel, the lovely Kilt Bill Inguito. I don't think it's Inguito because it's Inguito. Hi, I'm spelling out a civilian's name on my goddamn show. Why would I do that? It seems rude. And yet I don't think he'd mind. He likes rude. He's kind of a rude dude himself. Like I said, he's walking around in a kilt with no underpants. This guy doesn't own any underpants. 71 years old, doesn't own any underpants. He's got a braided ponytail down to his ass crack. No underpants. He just wears a kilt, likes the breeze. That's what he says. And then he comes into the sushi joint, but this is kind of, I will tell you this is the thing I don't understand about Kilt Bill and his kilt. You know, if you got a kilt and you're not wearing anything underneath it, that's one thing. But then when he sits on a chair, he pulls the kilt up as if it were some sort of dress, like he doesn't want to get it wet in a puddle, and he goes bare ass on wherever he sits, whatever sort of function, whatever chair or couch or ottoman he decides to plant it on. He pulls the skirt up and he just goes bare ass right on it. I just called it a skirt. It's a goddamn kilt. Which doesn't make any sense. He's going to beat the fuck out of him. This guy's huge. He's a giant. But a gentle giant, certainly. And also, he's smoked cigars for the last 80 years, so I think I could take him in a fight. That's a lie. I could take him in a run. That's about it. I could sprint away from Kilt Bill. Although, you know what? I'd be wearing jeans, and he's got all the freedom with the legs. The legs are turning. And that's at least worth a couple of steps. So he gets the legs turning with the kilt going. The only thing I have to hope for is that the breeze blows it up into his eyes. Maybe that happens. Maybe he gets Monroe'd. Maybe he tries to chase me and a fucking subway train comes through, blows the skirt up right in his face. He gets a 7-year itch and he smashes into a goddamn telephone pole and I run off into the night. I don't get my ass beat by a kilt-wearing dude with a braid down to his ass crack. Thankfully, I avoid that penalty. Just for mispronouncing his name here on the goddamn show. Just for trying to do a favor to this guy. Kilt Bill Inguito, not Inguito. Or perhaps Ingito. Is he one of the Indigo girls? I'm not sure. They wore kilts. Actually, no, they've never worn dresses in their lives, the Indigo girls. Aren't they? They're just wearing like fucking, they got short nails and cowboy boots. I'm sorry, combat boots. I was going to say, why would they have cowboy boots on? Why are they the village people? The Indigo people? The Indigo village people. The village Indigos. You can say it any way you want. There's 3 words. Play with them. Put them in any order you can. Play Mad Libs with the fucking Indigo village people, girls. The Indigo village girls people. The Indigo people village girls. I don't know how you want to do it, folks. Again, just have fun with those 4 words. I'll wait. I can actually do that. I can put the show on hold while you go off and grab a pen and just have some fun with those 4 words. And everybody send in your entries to me. And the best entry is going to win a prize. That prize, I will mispronounce your name on here and then say you chased me in a fight and then something got blown into your eyes and you smashed into a telephone pole and I absconded into the night. Tight as the night. So here's the thing that happened. I was there. We went to sushi. We go to a Katsuya. I say that with 3 syllables. It has 3 syllables, but I separated them as if they were 3 separate words. Katsuya. There's no H. Hya. But I don't care. Hya. I say it as if I were pulling up on a horse in the Old West. Katsuya. And then I get cowboy sushi, which I'm sure you've had before. That's more of a steak tartare on top of a pile of rice. Did the cowboys eat rice? Did the best cow? Well, I think they do because all the best cowboys have Chinese eyes. I'm going to drink some water while you fucking digest that. I had to stop myself from blowing that joke. I said it a different way. I was about to say it because my brain worked too fast. Whatever, go listen to it back. You'll hear it. I don't need to explain fucking comedy to you guys. As he sits here and yells in a different direction. Kathleen Quinlan just beaming from the corner. All right, so... we went to sushi, and it's like I said, we put out the call. This was a call to all hey, that's the Foo Fighters. I threw it out there to everybody, and me, Heidi, and Mel went to have sushi, and a Bill Ingito answered the call, and an Edward Serrano, like a serrano pepper, he answered the call. And let me talk about Edward for just a second. Edward, a lovely man. Edward, a terrific guy. Edward, I think he works at the post office, if I remember correctly. Edward, because here's the thing. We go to the sushi joint every year, and Heidi's like, Mike, just order. Just start ordering stuff, and we'll eat it. It'll be fantastic. And it's a lot of pressure, because, I know what they want to eat, and I want to mix it in with some other new stuff, that we've never had. And because when I go to a sushi joint, I eat sushi. I eat fish and rice, man. That's what I fucking love. But you got to get rolls for people. You got to get, like, some appetizers and baked crab and stuff like that. There's things that are like sushi candy, I call them, but they're fucking delicious. So I got to make sure I please everybody at the table. Now, other years, there have been 8 or 9 or 10 people at the table. And I'll always say, hey, what do you like? What do you guys want? What interests you? And then I'll try to mold it all so we all get to try a little bit of something that everybody else likes. But with me and Mel and Heidi, I know pretty much what they like. And Bill Ingito is also a sushi man, so I'm pretty sure I know what he likes. And but then an Edward Serrano shows up. Abierto Serrano. Abierto Edward Serrano. He showed up. And this is a gentleman who's been in the Army. I think he was in the Army or the Air Force or the Navy or the Marines or the Coast Guard or the Maritime somebodies. The Maritime Marines. I don't know. He's in some sort of place where he had to wear a uniform. And he found himself stationed in Japan. So he comes to dinner with a full knowledge of sushi and what he likes. And so I figure, all right, well, yeah, what do you like, man? We'll go ahead and get it. And he's like, well, and he starts to look at the menu himself like he's going to order his own food. And in my head, I'm just like, well, I have no problem with that. But Heidi's like, hey, it's tradition where Mike just orders whatever whatever we're going to get. But Edward is like, well, I know, I've been to Japan. I know what I like. And I get that, man. He doesn't want fucking anybody ordering for him. He and I are not a fucking date. But it's weird, because in the moment, he starts looking at a menu, and I'm used to ordering everything, but I just want to defer. I'm like, all right, well, you just order food. Because I don't want to pretend like I'm some weird expert, because then he started saying, well, I go to Japan, and I know a lot about sushi, and after I ordered some stuff, he just goes, well, you're ordering mostly Neo sushi. When I go out, I usually get and I was like, all right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm never ordering another fucking thing. If you're going to tell me I'm ordering Neo sushi, why don't you grab the fucking menu and order everything you want for everybody? You can call the shots, because I'm not here to I didn't proclaim to be a sushi expert. it's just fun that we order a bunch of different stuff and everybody tries it. And like I said, because I asked him what he liked right when he sat down, but he's like, yeah, I have to admit, man, cool guy and all that. But you know me, I get my fucking hackles up over nothing. And when he's like, yeah, you ordered a lot of fucking Neo sushi. He didn't say Neo, and he didn't say it that mean, and he didn't say fucking. Bullshit. He said Neo. He didn't say fucking. He didn't say it that mean. He's like, well, you've ordered mostly Neo sushi now, but I mean, I know what I like, and so I was like, well, then tell me what you like. I'll fucking order it. I don't care. So he wanted some tamago. He ordered himself some tamago. And I told him, I go, look, I'll tell you, why don't you get your own check and you order your own stuff? And then the four of us will just eat off another. And he's like, no, of course not. I'm involved. And again, but you know me, I'm a baby. So I got a little, like, because here's the thing. It's fun for all of us when we go and I order the sushi, and it's fun for Heidi and Mel, and I try to discover things that they have not had, and Bill's on board. I try to do it with everybody. But if a guy comes in and he doesn't want that because he's a man, he doesn't want another man ordering food for him. We're not on a fucking date, so I get that. But at the same time, the whole deal of it is we go, I order the sushi, and we have fun, and we talk, and we have a good time. But if I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, did I order the right thing? Is this wrong? I mean, I know this is not classic sushi. This is the Neo sushi. As you know, I like to dabble in, folks. If you know anything about me, I enjoy the Neo sushi, which again, by the way, you can purchase in any phone booth in America. You walk in there, there's the Neo sushi right there. Throw a couple of quarters in the old phone and boom, it just shows up. But then I calmed the fuck down and I turned my head around and I said, let's have fun here. And so we did. We ordered a bunch of food. We had a great time. We hung out. And then I had to return to real life because I still had to Uber that night because I had to hit a fucking goal, like a target. So I wound up driving another 2 or 3 hours after we ate food. Again, like I said, that being able to drive Uber whenever you want is fantastic, but it's also fucking death. Because then the fact that I have to go out there and it's just such a weird feeling that I can turn it on at 10:30 at night or fucking 2 in the morning and just pick people up. Sometimes I'll do it if I'm just heading home, and I'll try to find people along my route. And Uber, oh man, they just made this fucking cool ass thing, and it only lasted a goddamn month. They did this thing called 180 Days of Change. They were going to take care of drivers. They're like, we're doing this, we're doing that. Well, one of the cool things they did is you can pick your own destination. It used to be only 2 times. So like if I was down by the airport, I could pick my house and drive toward my house, and it would just give me rides of people heading toward my house, heading north. And it was fantastic. It was a great tool. It allowed me to fucking just kind of concentrate on heading toward my house, and if I got money, I could pick people up on the way. Loved it. But you could only do it twice a day, which was a fucking hassle, because if you burned it at like 4 in the afternoon and then you're out at night, it was just, you always wanted to save one for the end of the night. But then with the 180 Days of Change, which they came up with because, one Uber guy killed 10 people in Michigan and then everybody else was finger blasting their fucking patrons. Every time you read a goddamn story, it's like Uber guy raped somebody or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, oh man, this is painting the rest of us in a bad light. If people think they're getting into a mobile rape unit, nobody wants to be in a MRU. So sure enough, they changed during the 180 days of fucking change for drivers to try to make them feel better about themselves. They added it where you could do destinations 6 times. So 6 times during the day, you could pick a destination that you wanted to head toward, which was fucking fantastic. Because then you could just burn one in the afternoon. Say you were driving, you went, you know what, I'm going to head home, and you could just grab some stuff on the way to your house. It was really great. And that lasted 2 months, and now it's back down to 2. And I found that out the hard way. Look, believe me, they sent us a big fucking email trumpeting the 180 Days of Change. Now you got 6 ways to pick your destination. It's fantastic, 6 times a day. I didn't get an email bannering the fact that they'd cut 4 more off and gone back to fucking 2. So the other day, I burned one in the afternoon, and then I went to go and do it again at night, and it said I had 1 of 2 left. And I'm like, whoa, fuck you. Are you kidding me? It was more like 60 days of change, you fucking humps. But I know what you're thinking to yourself. Hey, 50-year-old man, you used to work in an office anyway. You shouldn't be driving people around in your fucking car, you failure. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking that because I think it too. Manly, yes, but I think it too. So here's the deal, man. I went for sushi. We had a great time. I went driving, and then Friday came, which was Podfest Day. Now, I'll tell you this. I've mentioned Randy on the show, the lovely Randy, the gorgeous Randy, the beautiful Randy, the friendly Randy. I'm trying to think of a way to present her on the show in a way that's, she's Randy. She's the awesome Randy. Let's put it that way. She's really awesome. So, Randy and I have been texting and talking and seeing a lot of one another here and there. And, I invited her to come up for Podfest weekend. And I said, look, it would be really cool if you came up, and it would be a really great time. I wanted her to come up for sushi on Thursday. And then I said, you'll be able to meet Heidi and Mel and possibly a Bill Ingito, a Kilt Bill Inguito. Perhaps you'll be able to meet an Edward Serrano. He might be there. He's coming for sure. Come on up and have some Neo Sushi with me, doll, is what I said. And she was going to do it. She was coming up Thursday night, and then she's going to hang out with me Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then life interfered is what happened. Randy's got her own stuff going on. I don't want to delve into her life, but she wound up having a very important meeting. And they said, hey, well, we'll reschedule. Well, not reschedule. The meeting went extremely well. And they said, well, you'll probably hear from us in a couple of weeks. So instead, she heard from them in a day and a half. It was like 36 hours. And they said, we want to see you again tomorrow. And I was out and about, and she texted me a few times, and I didn't get to see them because I can't get to the phone when I'm fucking driving, but I saw them coming in, and I couldn't read them. But it said stuff like, she's like, hey, honey, they've tried to schedule me for another meeting, but unfortunately it's Thursday. So I don't know whether to come and see you for sushi or schedule this appointment with them. And so like I said, I got all the texts in a row. And then finally she said, honey, I made the call. I went ahead and scheduled this appointment. It's a big deal. I hope you don't mind. I'm sorry I'm missing sushi. But I can still come up maybe late Thursday or, early Friday. And I got to admit, I was crazy relieved. I was so happy because, you don't have to, well, she does check with me, and that's nice. I like that very much. But she made the right choice. That was really... That was a cool thing that she just did it where she's like, I had to make the call, man. And it made me really happy that she made an independent decision that I didn't have to chime in on. Like she took the initiative, which is really fucking cool. And I dug it. It was like she chose the right thing because she didn't worry about my feelings or go, you know what, Mike, I hope you understand I'm doing this, and I hope you're okay. And I mean, I was like, fuck yeah, of course, go get this thing done, man. I was so happy for her. I'm absolutely go do this. And obviously they loved you, so they rescheduled this for 2 days instead of 2 weeks. But in the when we talked about it, I said to her, hey, look, as long as we're doing this, if you're gonna miss Thursday, why don't you come up Saturday? Because Friday's opening night of the festival, but more importantly, I still don't know what I'm talking about on stage on Saturday. So if you gave me Friday, I could work. Because if you come up Friday, I'm still going to be working. I'm going to plunge into some earbuds, and I'm going to go ahead and sit there and listen to whatever the fuck I get to listen to. Because I had an idea of what the show was going to be, and but I was fighting it. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I should do this. I could do a different thing. And again, like I said, I don't focus very well. I can't sit down and just go, this is the thing I'm doing, and here's how we go. I'm trying to work on that. I'm fighting it off. I'm doing the best I possibly can. Well, that's a lie. I'm doing what I can. I'm trying to get to the best I possibly can do. So I was trying to figure out what the show was going to be, and I told her, I go, look, do me a favor. I said, just come up on Saturday morning. Then you can see me on stage. Because when I first wrote her, I go, that's okay. I said, I'm glad you're missing Thursday for your thing. I hope it works out great. I go, but why don't we skip Friday too, and then I'll work. I said, but then if you come up Saturday morning, you can just hang out, see my show, and then be here all weekend and head home on Monday. And she said, that's fantastic. I love it. I'll happily do that. I'll come up Saturday morning. And I was very relieved because, me. I mean, over the past few years, that I've always worried very much about. I've got to entertain. I've got to put my life on hold to try to be everything to all people and to do what I did. And that was a lot of that was my fault, where I made myself do that. But I'm learning now about boundaries and things like that. And so for me to be able to approach her, when she made that decision about the job interview, it made me go, you know what, I can probably do this without repercussions. And so I said, hey, look, what if I took Friday myself to work? And she was all for it. And I got to tell you, man, I was so goddamn happy. Now, did I work on Friday? No, that's a joke. I'll get to that in a second. Again, remember, folks, there's a possibility that I'm high. I will explain that soon. But then Thursday, like I said, I did the sushi. Friday, I went and had lunch. This was pretty cool. I got a message from our friend Jane. And Jane says she's done with Sergio. Would I like to have lunch with her on Friday afternoon? Of course I would. Absolutely. It was Jane and Jen and Mary and Barry and 4 more pages out of a Dr. Seuss book. What the fuck is that, right? Jane and Jen and Mary and Barry. Could they at Lemonade? Could they with AIDS? I don't know. That's not a rhyme. It's terrible. And of course, the lovely and talented Pat Francis was going to be there. And let's put it this way. I think they invited Pat Francis to lunch, and then as a mere afterthought, they went, you know what if Mike Schmidt wanted to come to this goddamn thing? Well, let's throw him a bone. And then they did. There was a bone thrown my way, and they said, you want to come and meet us? And I said, of course I do. So the thing was, I had to also drive. This is another thing. I was supposed to work all day fucking Friday on whatever my show's going to be, but then my brother Lenny needed a ride to the airport, and I was like, of course. I mean, I'm not going to turn him down. So I had to drive him to Long Beach. Not to the airport, to fucking Long Beach. I had to drive him at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's always an hour and a half ride. So that's fucking 3-hour round trip. But I made lunch anyway. I was able to go there for like a half an hour. We went to a Lemonade in Studio City. And like I said, it was Pat and Mary and Barry and Jane and Jen. And I met them and we had fun just yelling stuff in the middle of the fucking street and yelling at people on the crosswalk and enjoying, and Barry was gracious enough to buy dinner. And I should also mention this, the sushi fucking thing. The way it works is I order a ton of food and then everybody else pays and I don't. I don't understand that arrangement. I always offer to pay. I bring out my wallet. I bring out a credit card. I get told no. But then 4 people wind up splitting a bill that gets to be fucking 3-4 bills. I mean, it's insane. So I mean, for Edward and Bill and everybody to kick in $100 and Heidi and Mel $100 a piece basically because they ate and then they covered my fucking amount. I'm incredibly grateful to them for doing that. And I always tell them, you don't have to do this every year. I bring my card. I want to pay. And instead they pay and it makes me very happy. And that's another reason that was weird about Edward. I'm ordering a bunch of shit and maybe it's not stuff that he likes. So I'm like, that's why I said, man, get your own check and order your own food because by the time this check comes, it's going to be crazy and you're not going to want to pay for food that you didn't like. But Edward was very gracious and lovely and he was like, no, man. And also he wolfed down everything we fucking ordered because everything there is delicious. It's fucking Katsuya. There was only one thing that it was funny. I ordered a salmon skin hand roll and because again, that's total candy. Like a salmon skin hand roll with eel sauce. Oh my Christ, dude. That's like dessert. So I ordered it last. And then I told Heidi, I was like, here, just try this. And I gave her a big chunk of salmon skin, and she made a face that looked like I had told her, she was marrying a Nazi. I mean, she could not. She was just like so horrified. And she goes, that's gross. Like that was the first thing she ever said that she didn't. I mean, there's stuff that she thought was okay, but that's the first thing she ever went, nope, never again. Like, I don't want this. I can't fucking make this happen. Her face was so cute. So I go to lunch on Friday, which was fantastic. And then I went home, and then I took Lenny to Long Beach, and then I doubled back. Now, I should tell you this. I had reached out to a great friend of ours named Lily Von Stupp to see if she was interested in going to Podfest with me. Because, she's a huge part of this show. She's been a huge part of the show forever, and she's also been a huge part of Podfest. Now, I love having her there. I love the fans seeing her. The fans want to see her. That all makes me happy. But also, here's another thing. It was a selfish reason. I wanted her to come on Saturday so I didn't have to deal with the fucking tech. Because she's done that over the past few years where she gets involved. She's like, hey, Mike needs this, he needs that. Because here's the thing that works for Podfest. I always tell them what I need with an email. They always say, what do you need for your show? And then I tell them, and then we get there, and then they go, all right, well, what did you need? And I want to murder everybody on site. And so the thing was, Lily would just get in the way of that. She'd go, all right, what do you got? Let's do this. And I never had to fucking worry, and it made me happy. But I also, I wanted her to come on all 3 days. I wanted her to come Friday and hang out and have a good time. And we haven't talked very often. I know she's got a bunch of stuff going on. She's producing another show coming up here, and she's doing a lot of performances, like I said, going on the road. And also, man, her eye, her knee, all that shit is still fucking there. It wasn't like she got off this show and all of a sudden everything got magically healed. I wasn't the one keeping her sick or fucking her eye up. But I wound up being able to reach out to her, and I said, hey, would you want to go to Podfest this weekend? And she said yes. And I was very, very happy because we don't, like I said, I haven't talked to her very often. But she's like, you'll have to come get me. I said, fucking of course. I mean, whatever you need, I'm happy to do it. So when I took Lenny to Long Beach, I had to double back and hustle, and I had to go get Lily at her place. So it was fine. I got home with like an hour to spare, came home and was able to take a shower again and change clothes. I mean, being in the car for fucking 3 hours, all you want to do is shower. And especially because I'm going to meet people that fucking night. So I go pick up Lily. She looked fucking amazing because she's, if you haven't seen any photos, like she's letting gray go into her hair, man. She used to, color treat her hair all the fucking time. Well, now she's letting her gray come through and it's all in the front. It's like she's got like a fucking black cat Cruella de Vil thing happening. It's pretty fucking sharp. And, the funny thing, I'll put up a photo. She had to wear a surgical mask She put up a couple of photos and she tagged me in them, but I'll put something up in the Joker's page. I took a picture of us in the car because she had fucking really chunky, heavy, dark glasses on because, again, the sun bothers her because of her fucked up eye, and she had to put on a mask because of smoke and whatever the fuck else was in the air. So we're driving, and I mean, you'd be on the freeway. She didn't even notice that she's oblivious because she can't see out of her eyes. But I would look to the right, and anybody on the passenger side would like kind of glance over, and then they would do a double take because she looked like the fucking Unabomber. I mean, she looks like a fucking terrorist because she's got a big ass, a black surgical mask covering the entire lower half of her face, along with these chunky ass sunglasses. She looks like someone they interview in a documentary about the mob who doesn't want to be identified. She was some Mal's wife, some gunman's wife, and she's just like, well, the thing is, they turn her voice into fucking tomato soup. But she looked great. I thought it was fucking awesome, so I took a photo of us with that. I'll put it in the Joker's page. But we went Friday to the Biltmore Hotel is where we went. That's where the Podfest was. All right, let's talk about the Biltmore for just a second. I did not. The Podfest has moved. It's moved locations a few times. It was in Santa Monica at first at like a Lowe's hotel or something like that. Is that a theater or a hotel? I don't even fucking know. And I liked that, but that was still kind of awkward. But then they wound up at the Sofitel in Beverly Hills. And the cool thing about the Sofitel was it was centrally located. The whole Podfest was centrally located. It was like down this hallway. It was a comedy mall. Every door you went into, there were shows going on or presentations or the podcast lab, all sorts of different things. And it was all kind of within arm's reach, which made me happy. We get to the Biltmore, and it's downtown LA, so you can't park on site because it's $45 to park at the fucking hotel if you're not a guest, or even if you are a guest, I think. So we had to park across at Pershing Square. I dropped Lily off at the door because obviously she can't walk. She got the bad wheel. I said, I'll meet you in there. And then I had to do a couple of laps because everything's one lane. One way. Every lane is one way downtown. But once I got the hang of it, because it was that thing where I griped about it. Oh, man, I can't believe I got to do this. And the second I got the hang of it, it was like, oh, well, this is fucking fine. What am I upset about? And you park in the parking garage. It was $7 a day. Who the fuck cares? I got reimbursed by the festival. The end. I got up, I crossed the street, I was looking for Lily, and I entered, and I was in... This fucking hotel had like 35 entrances. I don't know how they did it. You could rappel in from the ceiling. There was like a dumbwaiter that you could take to a certain level because this building was old school, man. It was just... It was like one of those... You ever remember the Monkeys? I've talked about the Monkeys in here before. You ever see when the Monkeys have a chase and they go running from one door to the other door and then the villains come out of another door and they're chasing each other across the hallway? That's what the Biltmore was like. It was like a long hallway with a bunch of fucking entrances, and then there was a million different events going on besides Podfest. I walked in, I couldn't find Lily. I texted her. I'm like, where are you at? And then I ran in, of course, when I walk in, I start running into people that I know, fans and listeners and other people and podcasters and comedians and people like that. So I texted Lily. I'm like, where are you? And she's like, I'm over here. I'm over here now. She's like, Dice, I'm over here now. So I'm trying to find her. Hey, I'm over here now. So I went to 4 different places where I thought she might be. And I kept talking to guys. There's dudes in tuxedos. This place is a fucking old school jam. I mean, it is everything to all people. That's what the Biltmore is. Because I mean, there's the Podfest. There's like 14 quinceañeras. There's a fucking red carpet wedding event. I mean, it was all sorts of shit. And they kept bragging about the Oscars. There was a finger painting display in the fucking lobby, and then there was like a setup, like a fake red carpet with a fake backdrop that people could take photos in. There was a bar and a lobby, and then another bar, and then a restaurant, and then a fucking like this Mayan mask display. It was just everything. It was like a culture mall. It was fucking ridiculous. What I said on stage is that it was like a hallway museum because everywhere you went there was just another fucking hallway to go down. And I will tell you this I did not know. Murray Valeriano, host of the Road Stories podcast, good friend, told me, he goes, Ghostbusters was filmed in this joint. And it was one of those things where like I would have never guessed it until he told me. And then I looked around and I go, holy fuck, you're not kidding. Ghostbusters was filmed there. Dude, the elevators to the rooms are the elevators where when the Ghostbusters are going to go up to they go up to the hallways, and they're like, hey, somebody saw a cockroach up on 12. Must be some cockroach. Bite your head off, man. That's the fucking main elevators. So then when I walk in, Lily and I got a photo from there, and that's why she put up a photo on Facebook. She's like, we ain't afraid of no ghosts. And but when you stand there, you're like, yeah, this is it. Exactly. Like I never even, and when that movie come out, 84? So you're looking at fucking 30 years ago, for fuck's sake, 35 years ago? And it looked the same. The elevators did, at least once you realized that's where you were. And then the main ballroom where they had the big shows, like Walking the Room and The Dollop and Never Not Funny, that's where the giant chandelier is, where they shot up to catch the fucking ghost. At least I think it was, because there was this big ass fucking chandelier right at the top, and it looked just like it. And that's where they caught Slimer, and they didn't cross the streams, and they put him in the trap. Go watch. You have to watch Ghostbusters now to understand this fucking show. Terrible. But it was a lot of stuff going on at the Biltmore, and like I said, it had history, and it used to have the Oscars and all that shit. But it just as a venue was kind of daunting. You know, the podcast labs were upstairs, the displays were all upstairs, and then the other room was downstairs. There was stuff on 3 different floors for the Podfest. And again, like I said, I'm a baby. Like, I just want stuff fucking handed to me. Hey, take 3 steps and you're here. Take another 3 steps and you're here. But by Saturday, you wind up getting used to it. Friday, you're griping like, oh my God, this is over here and this is up here and then there's merch here and where do you go? But then Saturday, you fucking navigate it like a champ. And then Sunday, forget about it. You might as well be living in the goddamn place because you know where everything is. But in the moment, it was very challenging to find things and see where you were going and what you were doing. But finally, I found people, and I found Lily, and I found Murray, and we hung out. And we went downstairs, and it was me and Heidi and Mel and Lily. And they went in to watch Walking the Room, which was the final Dave Anthony and Greg Barron Walking the Room. Their guests were Chris Fairbanks and Steve Agee. They had a good crowd in there. People were killing it. And I did not go in because you know me. I'm out in the hallway. I'm lurking. That's what I do. I'm just figuring a way out. That's what I'm trying to do, is get away. No, I don't. Until I do my show, I don't relax and get to watch other shows. Now, if I was doing a show on Sunday, it'd be a different story, but my show was coming on Friday, and I was still nervous and trying to figure out what the fuck I was going to talk about. So Murray and I just kind of hung out in the hallway, and I will tell you this, Bert Kreischer was doing a show at the same time as Walking the Room. We went upstairs to go see where Bert Kreischer was, and we walked and we saw a little bit of his shows, him and Bart Weinbach and Kate Quigley. And here's what I did, all right? I'm a weirdo. My head is fucking strange. I wanted to meet Kreischer. It was important to me because he saw the Earbuds documentary and he asked Graham and Chris, who the fuck is Mike Schmidt? Like, that's the guy I want to talk to. So I reached out to him via social media, I think 2 times, maybe 3 times, via Twitter. Hey, Bert, you did this. And other listeners, too, were like, Bert, this is Mike. Oh, my God, he's the guy. And then I'd chime in. I'd go, hey, Bert, hi. You talked about me on Comedy Film Nerds. You were talking about me doing your show. I'd love to do it. And I definitely reached out twice. I might have reached out a 3rd time. And then in my head, I never heard back. He never even contacted me once. And in my head, I was like, well, fuck that. I mean, I'm not going to beg this guy to be on a show, which is the dumbest thing in the world. Bert Kreischer is 100 times more busy than me. He has 100 times more followers. He's got more stuff going on, and I'm the one who benefits. He doesn't fucking benefit from having me on the Birdcast. I'm the one who would benefit because I'd make an ally. I'd meet him, and I know I'd fucking make him laugh his ass off. And who knows what the fuck would come of that. So then Friday we go in the room and it's me and Murray and we watch some of the Birdcast and in the Gold Room. And I was in the Heisenberg room or the Heisenberger room. I don't even know what the fuck it was. Such weird names in hotels for fucking places. And I don't know. I guess you could have all these different names because there's so many fucking rooms and hallways in the goddamn joint. But then Kreischer, we didn't know if his show was done or not done. And I told Murray, I go, the thing is, Bert, he's actually shown an interest in having me as a guest. He's like, why don't you talk to him? And I go, I already tried to reach out to him. And Murray goes, well, I know him. If you want, we can hang out. I'll introduce you to him. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. And he's like, why not? And I go, well, I already bothered the guy 3 fucking times. Obviously, I'm bothering him. He would have gotten back to me. Again, the dumbest thing in the world. And I regret it now. I'm very upset and angry at myself because I didn't talk to him. Murray's like, all right, well, if you want, I can give you his email. And you can just go ahead and contact him that way. I go, I don't know. I already reached out to him on Twitter a couple of times. It's so fucking dumb. So in my head, I get this thing where it's like, I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to be bothering the fucking guy. It's the same thing at sushi where I'm like, all right, Edward, if you want to get your own food, that's totally cool. Even though Edward's fucking picking up all of my check or 1/4 of my check. What a child. What a fucking idiot. But I'm not a child and I'm not a fucking idiot. I got to stop poisoning myself by saying shitty things about myself. I just sometimes wind up doubting myself a little bit. And I say, well, there's no way Bert Kreischer wants to talk to me. I've tried to talk to him 3 times. And obviously he doesn't want to talk to me or he would have mentioned something one of the other 3 times. So there's no reason to bother him again. By the way, all of that stuff I just said for the last 4 minutes, I said in front of Murray Valeriano. He's just looking at me like, what? All right, fine. So we left there, we walked to the hallways, found more people, said hello, talked to people, ran into podcasters. It was fucking great. Went downstairs when they let out the fucking walking the room, and I met Lily out there, and she comes up to me and she's just like, Chris Fairbanks has 2 buttholes. I'm like, well, pardon me? Well, because Chris had an operation with his hip and they had to move some stuff around, and I guess he wound up with another opening. I don't fucking know. And then Steve Agee was talking about stuff, and then Barron, of course, is still fucked up. She told me, she goes, like, Anthony's the only healthy one, and the rest of them are all exchanging medical information during the entire goddamn show. And I just heard fucking rolling laughter, so I can imagine how fucking great it was. But Lily comes out and she's just like, yeah, that was odd. Like all those guys are like sick, and not like sick like ill sick, but like they have real problems. I mean, and I'm like, yeah, well, we're all fucking old and dying. And besides, you're limping around with fucking surgical mask on, and you're the one you're telling me how fucking sick those guys are. They probably saw you walk in and they thought, wait a minute, who the fuck is ISIS here? Is a bomb going off? What the fuck? And actually, the thing was, the ISIS convention was up on the 4th floor, so that's why they were confused by your presence in the showroom. So we go up more hallway stuff. We walk around, and it's funny. Murray had said he had asked me if I wanted to be a special guest on Road Stories, and his guests were Paul Gilmartin and Jimmy Dore. He's like, you can come on and tell some Chicago road stories on there. And I told him, yeah, that might be a possibility. Check with the other guys and stuff and see if it works for them. I don't want to step on anybody's time. But then it turned out it just didn't work out. Like, Murray approached me. I should say, he told me even before we went and looked at Kreischer, he's like, you know what, we're just going to go with Jimmy and Paul. And I said, that's fine. I totally get it. Because, again, I don't know what fucking time constraints are like. But I really wanted to see that show. So I ducked in to see Murray. And Lily and I were there watching Road Stories. And fucking Murray makes me laugh. And then he brought out Gilmartin, who's a fucking genius. I'm just like jealous of Paul because he's so fucking good. He's such a tight writer. And then he's really good at improv off the top of his head. And he's just quick and funny. And man, I love Paul. I'd love to work with him in a show, like on stage with him, to try to just fucking exchange and trade. Because I go to poker when we have conversations. He makes me laugh my ass off, and I make him laugh too. So it'd be really fun to do that. Like I did fucking mental illness happy hour, but and it's funny. I've often thought to myself, I should pitch myself to go back and do the show again. But I don't. I'm not sick enough. I don't have enough fucking weirdness or problems to go do it. Every time I see now, he's got some girl who her dad pimped her out, or some woman whose mom sexualized her, or some guy who still is having sex with his aunt. You know what I mean? I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't fucking hang, man. I'm just fucking mad. So I don't think I fit the criteria anymore. But I would do it just to have a fucking conversation with Paul. He would make me look good, and that would make me happy. So we go into Road Stories, and we're watching, and the whole time though, I gotta admit, it's nagging in my brain. I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I got a show to do tomorrow, and I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I still had not narrowed down what I wanted to do. I had a plan for what I wanted to do, and I just wasn't sure if I could pull the trigger on it. In my head, I'm like, I don't know if I should do this or not. And usually, you know me, I don't question. Like, I mean, the one thing I do have confidence in are my stories and storytelling ability. But I always try to think, well, it's got to be perfect. That's the thing, is I get in my own head and I'm like, it's got to be perfect. I got to make it work for people. I've got to make them happy. I've got to this and that. And so you paralysis by analysis. You overthink it and you're like, oh, well, I should do this, but I couldn't possibly because it'll turn into this. And that's how my creative mind works. I mean, I think I'm really fucking good, but then I can find a million reasons to tell myself why I'm not. But also, focus is a problem for me. So sitting down and actually figuring out a story, I told you about this for 2020. I would have a month to prepare, and then a month would come, and then it would be the day of the show's at fucking 7:30, and I'd be in my house at 5:45. Go, all right, well, I'll think of some stuff in the shower. But that was 20 minutes. I mean, I could fake my way through fucking 20 minutes. This was a different thing. This was Podfest. This was people coming from across the country to see me, and this is people I care about. And it's also, I've got an hour to fill, or an hour and a half, or however the fuck long I want to do. I can talk as long as I want, and just get the fuck out of there. But I couldn't decide what show to do. I tried. I thought, well, do this, do that. I mean, like I said, I had, and then there are stories that I know so well in my head. I'm like, well, you could just do that. But I wasn't going to do it because it would have been a cheat. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be new. I wanted to be fresh. And I wanted to do something that I'd never done before for you guys. So I had an idea of what I was going to do. And like I said, I talked myself out of it. And then I finally got home. I dropped Lily off. I got to my house at like 12:15, and then I sat here and I was like, all right, what should I do? And I batted it around in my head, and I said, you could start with this, and my process is weird because I keep telling myself, well, I'll hit upon it. I'll think it. I'll sit here and I'll talk and I'll go in my brain and I'll figure it out. And instead of actually having because again, the bottom line is I have faith in my storytelling ability. So if I come up with a fucking topic or I come up with an idea or a story, I figure I can just live in the story and it'll be fine. So I had an idea for what I was going to do, and then I talked myself out of it. And then finally at 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, here's the workaround. Here's what you do. I decided on what story I was going to tell. And in my head, I was like, all right, you can do that. You'll live in the story tomorrow. So go to bed now because Randy's going to be here early in the morning, and then you'll do some work in the morning and try to figure it out. So I went to bed. And I can't... Look, I can't just lay in bed and think, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. Because then I started in my head piecing it together. And this, by the way, this was work I should have done a month ago. But the thing was, I had an idea that I wanted to bring to the stage. But I couldn't commit to it. I couldn't pull the fucking trigger on it. Eventually, maybe someday. But at this point in time, it just didn't seem like a good idea. So I thought of what story I was going to do. And then I said, I'll go to bed and get some sleep. But instead, of course, in bed, I'm trying to construct the beginning. I'm trying to construct this. And then I'm writing bits about the actual show and the venue. And then finally at 2:45, I said, get up. Fucking get up, dude. There's nothing you can do here. And I went. And the story I decided to tell, I will just tell you now. I told a story in year 3 of this podcast, which is 7 years ago. And it was a story about one night. It's larger in scope than that, but it culminates in one night in the home of a woman I was dating, who decides it would be a good idea to burn my stuff, and it turns into a really long night. It's a Kathy story. Because I have a few Kathy stories. Hold on, I got to drink water. Hold on. You know what? I'm starting to feel like an abalone in my throat, and I wonder if I should cough it up. Hold on. Terrible. My throat feels like it's sticking together when I talk. Because again, my voice is thick, ladies and gentlemen. Thick, double C, CC, Chip Chinnery. That's how we do it to him with a poker game. All right, you don't care. That's out of my personal life. That's from my private life. Hi, Oingo Boingo. How are you? So, I said I'm going to tell this Kathy story. And I started to fucking work it in my head. And then at 2:45 in the morning, I got out of bed. I go listen to the story. Hear the beats. So I listened to the story. Now I should tell you, the stuff on this show, there's no plotting, no planning, no script. I call it talking at the speed of my head. You guys are all aware of that. So I just fucking open it up and I start talking. And in the old days, I could pull from a bunch of stories from my life. Now, like I said, my life has gotten a little smaller. Things have changed a little bit. So there aren't as many stories that I can just fucking live in because I've for 10 years, every week I've brought you probably a story from my past. And so there's work that needs to be done. I need to sit down and actually mine through my past now and look for things that I haven't talked about. I can find them, but I don't like working like that because then that seems phony to me. It's the most dumb thing in the world, but if I have to dig to find a story, is it worth telling? Oh, foolish, but that's how I think. So I go back and I listen to this Kathy story from year 3, and I listen to it unfold, and I'm astonished by it. I sometimes get in my own head. I think I'm really good at what I do, but I listen to that show. That's a perfect fucking show. That is a show because the story was organic. It just comes flying out because I had been talking about Mel Gibson. This is how long ago this was. Those Mel Gibson tapes had just come out with his girlfriend and him yelling and using the N-word and fucking swearing and stuff, and telling her, "You will blow me," all that fucking craziness. That was not me. That was my handle on my listen. That just happened. That's the handle on my chair. Don't think that my fucking throat went bananas. So I was talking about Mel Gibson, and then I said, hey, I understand why you act like that because... And then I spun it into the Kathy story, and I told a story that lasts, it's almost 50 minutes, the story itself. But as I'm listening to it, I will relate this to you. It's like... God, my fucking chair keeps making noise. There's a Family Guy where Brian writes a play and it gets produced in their small town and everybody thinks it's brilliant. And Stewie's like, I want to write a play. And Brian's like, oh, okay, buddy, you write a play. So then he writes it And then he gives it to Brian to read. Brian keeps ducking him, doesn't want to read it because he's like, whatever, a little kid. And then he reads the play, and it's the most beautiful thing he's ever written or read, and he starts crying. He's just sobbing because not only does he realize this is a beautiful piece of art, but it also realizes he's a fucking sham. He wrote some hack piece of shit and wound up on stage somewhere. And in the meantime, right under his very nose, there's a genius. And it hits him really hard. Now, yes, I know it's a cartoon, and I'm making it much more than it was, but that's the truth. But that's how I feel listening to this story. Like, I'm listening to it unfold, and I hear fucking angels, a chorus of angels in classical music, and I go, Jesus Christ, you are really good at what you do. I mean, you're fucking good at this. And then the problem with that is I intimidate the fuck out of myself, and I go, well, you're never going to be able to replicate this on stage. Not like this. Because, again, another thing is, these stories are mine. I lived them. And I told them a certain way. And on that show, I've never told that story. I had never told it before, and I've never told it since. So it lives in amber as the creation I made 7 years ago. That's it. That's the animal I put together. And as I listened to it, I'm like, I can't do this any better. It's perfect. The beats on it are perfect. Lily is, there, and she's laughing and enjoying it. It's just art. And yeah, I'm jerking off on you now, but I mean, it fucking was, because I was kind of stunned. I don't listen too much to my old stuff. I don't listen to the new stuff either. I don't listen to anything at all, which I should do, because I keep threatening, well, I should go back and listen to all these old shows because I got stuff to bring to the stage and blah, blah, blah. And, but then when I listened to that, I sat there and I started to take notes because I wanted to have notes on beats. And then I turned out to be taking more extensive notes. And then I just started writing full chunks of dialogue because, like I said, I've lived that story. But the way I told it on that show is, quite frankly, astonishing. And I don't give a fuck if you think I'm just sucking my own cock here, and I probably am, but I don't give a fuck. Go listen to it and tell me I'm fucking wrong, because you're wrong. I'm mad at you for no reason. I started a fight with you for no reason at all. But then, like I said, I hear it, and I think, well, you can't replicate this on stage. Certainly not in 12 hours. Because that was the thing. I was 4 a.m. as I'm done taking the notes, and my show's the next day at 4 p.m. And I'm like, are you going to be able to fucking do this? And so then I start in my head, I go, well, maybe I should do another thing or another story. And I'm like, no, this is exactly what you want to do because it ties into the story you wanted to do but can't do. And so then I wrote a button and an out. I wrote an intro. Basically, I wrote a beginning, a new beginning, and a new end to get me into and out of the story, because I couldn't do the Mel Gibson stuff because the Mel Gibson stuff is so seamless and perfect, but it's of its time. I can't bring that to the fucking stage at the Podfest. And then I tied up the ending of the story on the show with a Mel Gibson thing. So I had to eliminate that and write a new beginning and ending. So I'm writing the new beginning and ending, and then listening to the show and trying to figure out the beats and wondering if I could still do it. And finally, it got to be fucking 5 a.m. and I'm like, man, Randy's going to be here at fucking 11. You got to get some sleep. And maybe in the morning you can get up and write and do what you got to do. So I did. I went to sleep. I got up at 10, and then I sat down and I went through the beats and I kept reciting them and thinking them out loud and talking. And like I said, I intimidate myself because I hear that story on that show and it can never be told better. I don't think to myself, I go, it can't be told better. I go, but you lived this story. You know it. You can tell it from your heart. You don't have to fucking follow this blueprint. But that's where you guys come in. I tell a story on this show and you hear it a certain way. You want to hear it that way again if you're ever going to hear it again. And I don't blame you because the example I use, and I told Randy about it, there's a comedian named Richard Jenny who was a fucking genius, and unfortunately he was such a genius he killed himself because his brain was all fucked up like most comedian geniuses are. I don't want to fucking pigeonhole people like that. I wouldn't say most comedian geniuses. He had a problem. Jenny, he was all fucked up, so he killed himself. Tortured genius is the phrase I would use. Well, the first time I ever saw him was on a Young Comedian special with fucking Rick Reynolds, and I was in a bar in Tahoe. It was me, DJ, the bartender. We're watching that, and it was phenomenal. I mean, fucking Richard Jenny was killing me. He was so funny. He told a story about getting into a street fight and how nobody ever fights. They just sit there and they yell at each other the shit they're going to do to one another. He's like, I'll tear your eyes out. I'll put them on a necklace. I'll put it around your neck. You have to read a book like this. And he fucking sways the book back and forth. I'll box your ears. All that shit. And we laughed our balls off. Well, then I saw Jenny live and I saw him subsequent television appearances and he would do the bit, but he would always do it differently. Now, as an artist, I know exactly why. You get fucking bored doing the same shit over and over, telling it the same fucking way. So I understand that that's why he was doing it. He changed it up for himself because it's the way to stay sane when you're doing that shit. Obviously it didn't work because he fucking offed himself, but still. However, as an audience member, I was always a little disappointed hearing the bit differently than the first time I'd ever heard it. I always wanted it to be true because it lived inside me in its first incarnation, and I loved it so much. It was so funny. I remember laughing. I can remember the smell in the room. We were in in the nightclub where I bounced at in Tahoe, and there was nobody in there. It was dead because it was early. It was only 9 o'clock. So we were getting the bar set up and just fucking hanging out, watching it, and laughing our balls off. I can still smell the liquor in the air when I fucking think about it. So I didn't want to cheat anybody who loved that story by doing it in a different way. But then in my head, I'm not Richard Jeni. Nobody fucking knows my stories. Nobody can tell me the fucking beats of that story from 7 fucking years ago. But I still got in my head about it. So I'm like, well, I got to recreate it exactly the same way. Well, no, you could live in this story. But I that's why I wrote giant swaths of dialogue, because I'm like, well, no, you got to do it. You got to tell it this way. It has to be this way because you're going to disappoint somebody. And whatever the fuck. This is the mental gymnastics and bullshit that I put myself through. So Randy shows up. It was awesome to see her, and in my head I'm like, hey, we should probably just stay in bed and have sex until it's showtime, but we can't do that. She's probably not going to be happy I said that on here. I got to stop doing that. All right, let's backtrack that. I'm going to cut that out. All right, let me make a mark. I'm not going to cut that out. Randy comes, and I'm still learning. I'm reading it. I'm just stealing glimpses at my notebook. I take a shower. I decide not to shave, which I was fucking weird. We go to the show itself, and we get there, we park, and I was remarkably calm. I know this is going to sound weird because normally, you guys know me, I'm fucking bananas. Especially on a day where I'm going to go do a fucking hour-long show, and I haven't been on stage in a goddamn year, at least to do anything like that. I mean, I've vamped at 2020, but that doesn't fucking matter. But I will also tell you this. I had to meet Randy here early. Not meet her, I had to have her here early because I had to talk to her. Because I had to tell her, look, here's the deal. We're going to this thing, and it's my favorite weekend of the year, and it's going to be fantastic, and I wanted her to see me on stage. It was very important for me to have her see me on stage because I needed her to realize I was not a pretender. She doesn't know me from the show. She doesn't know me. She knows me, as I told you, from we met 20 years ago on that game show, and then we've kept up a social media friendship, which then became more. And I... when you say podcast or whatever, people can get an image in their head. So I wanted her to see what I do. That was important to me, was that she see what I do and understand that I'm not this. I mean, look, I am a wannabe, but I'm not a wannabe in that I don't have the talent and I'll never make it. I'm a wannabe in the sense that I haven't worked hard enough to get the things I'm supposed to get, but I have the talent to do it. I just need to develop some fucking drive. So, I also had to talk to her because I go, look, here's the deal. This is a big place with a lot of people who know me and a lot of people who don't know me who are going to want to talk to me after they see the show. And I had to condition her for the fact that you guys are out there and you guys are curious because I'll tell you what, here's an example. I haven't talked about her much on the show because, in my previous relationship, I wound up talking quite a bit about it. And then, you see what happens. Cracks form and then you don't want to talk about it and then it becomes a thing and without pointing fingers or casting any sort of blame on anybody, I tried to portray a picture that maybe wasn't there because I wanted it to be a certain thing. Well, so I've gone slow with Randy here and I haven't mentioned her a whole bunch and you guys are curious and you're all very nice and you're my friends. So you'll write me and be like, hey, who's this person? How is she? What is she like? And I answer you the best that I possibly can. Hey, it's going slow. She's really cool. But then there are, people looking for clues. And I said clues like clothes. People are looking for clues. So last week, I guess I used the word honey when I was describing Randy. I said, hey, honey. And I was describing a dialogue. I don't even know that I did it. But I must have because I had like 12 people write me and go, honey, is there something you're not telling us? Honey, oh, does this mean something? Should we, and I get it. You guys I'm right there in your fucking ears, right there standing there dancing on your brain pan, shouting into your eardrums and so you pick everything up and you care about me and what's going on and you want to know what's up. And I get it. So, I wrote people and said whatever the fuck I said, if you got an email from me. And if I haven't answered you, I'll eventually answer you or take this as your answer. Whatever the fuck. I had to condition her because I said, look, these people are my friends, but they're also listeners, and they're going to be curious about you. They're going to want to know who you are and talk to you, and they're very friendly. Everybody means well, but she was getting dropped right into a fucking hurricane. I mean, she was going to be at the eye of people coming up, and also I said, look, people will pull me aside. I'll see comics that I got to talk to. I will. It's a work weekend for me as well as a fucking awesome fun weekend. So I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to talk to listeners and strangers, and I'm going to have to talk to other comedians. And I said, I will never leave you alone. You know, I will. My hand will be in yours, or you'll be at my side all the time. And she goes, hey, honey, I get it. She goes, go be you. And here's another cool thing. She comes from show business. All right. She worked at a radio station called K-Rock here in Los Angeles for a very long time from a very young age. And she worked there as an intern, and then she graduated, and I know she started working in the, on remotes, and then she was working at live stuff, and then she was working in the studio. I don't know what her official title was, but she worked there for a very long time, still has friends, and she actually works for a radio station now. She co-hosts a radio show down in Laguna. She's writing a book, so she gets it. She comes from art. And she said to me, look, honey, I get it. I go do what you need to do. You don't have to worry about me. And God damn it, I didn't. It was the greatest. She was there. If I talked, I introduced her to everybody, and then she'd drift off, and she has a really good eye for taking photographs, even with her phone. So she would take photos. She loved the Biltmore. She's like, look how ornate it is. And she'd show me these photos of things that I didn't even notice, these sculptures on the wall and things on the outside. And she loved it. She really just made the most of it. And everybody was very nice to her, and she fit in great. It was really, really fun. I loved it. I was so happy because, again, you know me, I worry, and what I do is not, it's a different thing. It just is. But more importantly, like I said, I wanted her to come to the show and see that I wasn't a pretender. She's going to meet you guys, and there are people who are fans or friends or listeners or whatever, and then she's going to meet other performers, but she just, man, she could not have been cooler. She could have not have been more with it. And here was the best. She hung out with Mel. I introduced her to Heidi and Mel right away, and they kind of took her under her wing, and they adopted her, and that was on Saturday, and she never, she was at my side until she wasn't. And I always find her later. I could text her. I go, hey, I'm here. What are you doing? And she'd find me, and she was able to keep herself busy and talk to people, and she, made her own contacts. It was fucking phenomenal. And she handled it like a goddamn champ. I was so happy. So happy. We went to the room I was supposed to be in where I was doing my show. The show that was there before me was Boogie Monster, which is Kyle Kinane and Dave Stone. And, we go in and we watch the end of it. It was totally funny. Dave Waite was on the show, who I booked at 2020. Steve Gillespie, a good friend, comedian, was there. I didn't recognize Steve at first. He had a baseball hat, and I'm like, excuse me, I'm Mike. And again, that weekend I meet everybody, and I'm like, hi, I'm Mike. I mean, if I met you before, I apologize, but my hand is always thrust out, and I'm telling you who I am. And Steve's like, fuck, Mike, it's Steve Gillespie. I'm like, God damn it. So we go and we watched then a Boogie Monster. It was awesome. And here's what I always talk about when I talk about Podfest. It's the annual, and what I told Shannon was I said, it's the annual, hey, I am in the business. Let's see if I can take this confidence boost and do anything with it weekend. That's what it is. Because after Boogie Monster, it broke up. I saw Dave Waite. I talked to him. I talked to Steve Gillespie, and I was telling Randy, I said, hey, Kyle Kinane's extremely funny. He's a comic from Chicago, but he was there after me. I said, I had one of my most embarrassing moments in comedy in front of Kyle. And I've told that, I told that story on the show. Andy Wood closed me in a room. I showed up, and I didn't take it seriously. I just thought it was a bar in Hollywood. I could just come in and fucking half-ass it. Well, then I had to follow fucking Sean Patton, and I got vaporized because Sean fucking destroyed. I got in my own head. I told myself, well, I can't follow this fucking guy, which is stupid because I followed Ron White. But I couldn't follow him with the material I brought to the table and the lack of preparation. And sure enough, I went up there. He wanted me to do 20 minutes to close it. I think he lit me at 9. I mean, it was fucking whatever. It was bad. It was tragic. And Kyle was there because he's friends with Sean, and he came to watch Sean work. So afterwards, I was kind of poor mouthing myself and griping a little bit, and I was sad. And Kyle was like, yeah, man, that was bad. And I was like, I know, man. It's just, I wasn't ready for it. He goes, well, you got to be ready for it. Like Kyle, it was almost like he was disgusted to see somebody not honor the stage or the opportunity to perform. And he was not wrong. I mean, he kind of, in a very nice way, he chewed me out. And he told me that I was wrong, and I had wasted, basically. But look, I'm extrapolating a lot from what he told me. He was much nicer, but I wasted everybody's time, including my own and including his. He's like, he knew I had come from Chicago, and he knew I was funny. So for him to see me kind of just come in and fucking half-ass it was probably an insult to him, because that guy works his fucking balls off. Sean Patton works his balls off. These are young, fucking hungry, funny guys, and I walked in there like, the fact that he was closing me. After Sean, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I saw Sean, and I went, Jesus, I can't fucking hang. That's brutal. But Kyle wouldn't let me beat myself up. Or let's put it this way, he wouldn't let me wallow in any fucking self-pity. Instead, he was like, no, man, get fucking mad. And he didn't say it in those words, but he's like, yeah, you fucked up. You fucked up here, man. You should have really been ready for this, and you weren't. So I was explaining that to Randy. I said it was one of the most embarrassing moments, and I said it was embarrassing because I respect Kyle as an artist, and I didn't like wasting his time, but also it was embarrassing because I had to face myself in the mirror and just go, man, look at the opportunity you fucked up. What if I'd done well in front of Kyle and Sean, and they were like, hey, man, we got another gig, and you could hang out, and because now Sean Patton, I'm sure if he ever sees me again, he thinks I'm a joke. You got to always be on. You got to always be ready to establish yourself as fucking funny and ready to bring it. So it was Kyle's show. We're in the back of the room. We're getting ready because they're turning this room over, and they're like, all right, we got to get all the Boogie Monster people out. I say bye to Dave Waite and Steve Gillespie. I'm sitting there with Randy. And, this show happened like 5 years ago, easily, maybe more. Might have been even longer. And Kyle Kinane walks up, and he goes, is that Mike? And I look up and I go, hey, Kyle. And he goes, dude. He goes, where you been? And he comes out, and he puts a hand out, and he hugs me. And, he goes, man, I saw that you were going to be here. I was hoping you would be here. You're one of the fucking legends of podcasting. And I laughed, and I'm like, well, that is two words that should never be in the same goddamn sentence. And he laughed, and he was gracious and fun and funny. I asked him about Boogie Monster. I asked him about his career, where he's traveling. He asked me. I introduced him to Randy, and I met his friend Dave Stone, his co-host. And he's like, this was a lark. He goes, this was just shit we used to do around the bar. And we said, why don't we just start recording it, putting it out there? And for some reason, people like it. Kyle could not be more self-effacing or fun. Incredibly talented, funny guy, joke writer, just fucking brilliant. And he recognized me. He came up to me. He treated me like a peer, if not a peer. He treated me like with someone with reverence who's done this. And in front of Randy, which was the fucking best. After I had just told her that I had embarrassed myself and stepped on my dick in front of the guy, he gives up and he's like, oh man, you're one of the fucking guys who made this happen. And we talked. He hung out for like 10, 15 minutes, and it was great to see him. And then he and Dave left, and that I needed that, man. Look, I can always go on stage and do what I do, but to get that right before I went on fucking stage and to get it in front of Randy, dude, it was fucking fantastic. It was fantastic. I felt validated. I won't lie. I felt fucking validated because Kyle Kinane, who's a fucking genius, came up and was like, Mike! Is that Mike? Mike! And I'm like, yes! So then I told Randy, hey, look, I'm going to ditch in the back here and learn some stuff and learn some jokes. And she's like, oh my God, learn some jokes. Well, I decided to explain to her what learn some jokes means. And then the room started to fill up and it was time for me to go. And again, the tech stuff, I will tell you this. They were like, hey, do you need these chairs on stage? And I'm like, you know what, just leave them up there because I had planned to sit in all 4 chairs during the show. I'm like, why the fuck not? And then they struck the table, but I brought the table back up. And then I said, they found a mic stand with a round base, with a heavy base. I was fucking fine with that. And then she goes, hey, did you bring a logo like for the screen? And I said, I emailed it to you guys. She goes, oh yeah, well no, they said you'd bring it. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not bringing a fucking zip drive. And then she's like, well, did you bring your theme music? I said, I emailed it. She goes, yeah, no, they said you'd bring it. I'm like, motherfucker. But it doesn't matter because they, people who are there in the room know who I am, basically. But also, they didn't film it this year. There was no live stream, so I don't need the fucking logo next to me or the song or the music. And the fucking theme song was always ridiculous anyway. I loved walking out to it, but it always made me laugh that they would ask for it. I'm like, really? You want my theme song? All right, that makes sense. So I'm in the back and I'm getting nervous, and of course I'm wondering and worrying, and I'm looking at the book and I'm trying to read everything and understand the beats, and then I try to cobble together like a decent set list of stuff in order with just like keywords that I'm in the back and they keep coming and asking me fucking questions and I don't want to answer them because I just want to concentrate, and I'm like, man, just leave me be. Leave me fucking be. I don't care. If there's a microphone and a light, I'll talk. Just make sure there's seats for the patrons and a microphone and a goddamn light. That's it. I don't need a screen, any of it. And then they introduced me and I went out there and I did the show. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. It went really well. All right, I will say this. It went well. I from crowd reaction. For me, I know I missed some beats. I did whatever, but I will tell you this. The story on the podcast is like 48 minutes. And live, I hit the post on it. The live story was like 48 minutes, the live Kathy story. I vamped a little bit beginning and end around it, and I think I wound up doing an hour total, or might have been like 55 minutes. But it was, and again, it's because once I hit the ground running on the story, I wanted to live within the narrative that I had done on the podcast before. But if I had lived in the story itself, I probably could have done fucking an hour and a half. You know what I mean? That thing where you just keep finding more stuff and you start spinning up. But it was important to me to remember it the way it had been on the show. And now that I got it under my belt, going forward, if I do it again, I'll just live in it on stage. I'll remember the beats, but I'll also bring more to it and make it come to life. But it was important for me this time to stay true to the narrative that I had created in the previous show 7 years ago. And look, it's an intense story. If you go back and listen to it, you'll hear there's a lot of yelling and a lot of swearing and a lot of, there's a lot of violent, chaotic moments. But it's also, I try to make it as funny as I possibly can, like I did on the show. And I think I did a good job. I mean, I was real happy with it. And afterwards, there were people who cried, and they come up to me and told me they cried during the show. And just everybody was very nice. The Webbs were there, Debbie and Michael, and Michael Webb was like, dude, that was fucking amazing. Like, that was crazy amazing. And I was like, you're so nice. And Debbie was complimentary, a woman named Rebecca there. And here's the cool thing, man, because there were fans, people, listeners to the show, like South Philly Paul was there, and Elisa, and people who see me every year. But then there are new people because they come in to sample it. They don't know who I am and what I do. So for them to see me do that and do this intense story where, people were crying and were on board and kind of at the edge of their seats, well, it throws people off because they, it's a comedy podfest essentially, so they don't know what they're expecting, and then they see me get up and do something like that, and it blows them the fuck away, and then they come up to me and they're just like, Jesus Christ, because this is totally true. That was, the show finishes at like 5:15 or whatever on Saturday night. Between the rest of the time that I was there, Saturday night and then all day Sunday, I had at least 10 people come up to me, and they walk up and they look at me, and they're like staring, and I go, hey, hi, I'm Mike. And they go, hey. And they give me their name, and they'll go, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean, why? And they go, well, man, there was a guy, Bart from Minnesota. He was one of them, and he just goes, how do you get up on stage and do that? I go, do what? He's like, well, that's just that story. Like, he goes, there were people crying. Like, that was intense. And I go, yeah, good. And he goes, well, but how do you do that? How do you get up? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't feel there's any way you can be other than honest on stage. So to do that, you have to be as honest as you possibly can. I go, of course, I reveal the fucking tricks to everybody. I go, look, I missed some of the beats. I'm disappointed in the way I told it. I wish I'd have told it better. And he's like, well, you'd never fucking know it. Because again, you guys don't know. I know the standard I hold myself to. But again, like I said, I'm happy with how it went. It was a story I had not told live ever. And it was a story that I had told 7 years ago. So to tell it and have it come out the way it did is a triumph. I'm very happy with it. But all these people would come up to me and they go, are you okay? Like, again, that was fucking crazy, that story. Like, that was intense. Thank you for revealing that much of you. And I'm like, oh, of course. That's kind of what I do, man. That's what it's about. And then, of course, they go, oh, my God, well, I got to hear your show. And I'm like, yeah, you do. I go, well, you bet. Or I go, no, you don't. This is the offer I made to everybody at Podfest. I said, look, the shows are all now on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. So I'll tell you what, if you really want to get on board, because the show's so different now. I said, year 10, it's just me in a room talking, facing west. Although right now I'm facing east. So who knows? So all the new people, they're like, this sounds like an east-facing show. You said it was a west-facing show. Well, all right, you got me. But I told everybody, I go, if you're going to jump on board, man, here's what I will do. You email me. I will give you the 5 essential shows that are on YouTube that you have to listen to. And then you can jump in wherever you want. You want to go from the beginning? That's great. If you want to jump in now, that's great too. But the show's a different animal. In the beginning, I said I had a producer named Eric for like 9 episodes, and then Lily jumped in, and now I'm alone, solo in year 10. And for the time, that's the way it's going to be going forward. So, but it's a very different animal. So I said, I'd love you to hear the old shows, which was great. So everybody was perfect. I met people, and Heidi and Mel came up. Heidi knew the story I was planning on telling, and she's just like, I wish you would have told that, but I'm happy you told this, and you made it work. And then Randy came up, and I was, I didn't know what to think, because she's hearing a story about me throwing a fucking phone at a woman and beating the fuck out of a phone and smashing it to bits and bleeding and biting a hole in my lip. And She doesn't know who I am yet. We've been taking it slow and revealing ourselves to one another. She knows a lot of my recent chaos, and I know a lot of hers. But she hasn't delved into my past. I've heard a lot about hers. So for her to see that on stage, that's a lot to swallow. And she came walking up to me and she just went, "Baby, that was amazing." And I said, "Oh," I go, you don't have to say that. She goes, no. She goes, "I was squeezing Heidi's arm like I couldn't leave Heidi alone." And she goes, "I was in tears." She goes, "I was in tears looking at you up there." And she's like, "You got it, baby." She was incredibly gracious and incredibly complimentary, and it made me really happy that she could see me do exactly what I do and do it well. That was important. I needed her to know that I wasn't a phony, because this town is full of fucking phonies. This town is full of people who are like, "Well, I'm a comedian. I tell stories," and then they don't, or they do 5 minutes a week, or whatever the fuck they do. Because I told you, Randy she's not listening to the show. She said, "Yeah, it seems intrusive," and she's listened to a couple episodes. And I told her, I go, "Look, I don't have anything to hide. You can listen to anything you want." And maybe she will eventually, but she's got a life. She's got 2 kids. She's raising them, and she's, living her life. Like I said, she had these important appointments and stuff. So I don't expect her to listen. I don't expect her to go, "Oh my God," and fall at my feet because I'm fucking Comedian Jones. I mean, I don't. I just want to be happy, and I want to make her happy. I want to be as happy as we possibly can be, and be grown-ups and not, whatever, stay out of our own way. But for her to see what I did, that was incredibly important for her to see that. So she did, and it made me very happy. And even better, it meant my homework was done for the weekend. I could, no more pencils, no more fucking books. I could throw them in the trash and throw my fucking grad hat, or whatever the fuck that thing's called, mortarboard, into the air, and graduate to go just have some fun and fucking hang out in the hallway and have a good goddamn time. And so I went outside, I met people, we hung out, and I took a lap, and a lot of people want to talk to me after the show. Heidi and Mel went over to watch The Dork Forest with our good friend Jackie Cation. And, I took a lap, and I soaked it up. I wanted to meet listeners and fans and friends and talk and hear them talk about my show. It's the afterglow. That's what you want to do. You want to fucking cuddle everybody and be in the afterglow of the fucking show that you just did. So I did. And then we met them over at Dork Forest. We saw that, which was fun. Fucking Lorraine Newman was on there, which was fantastic. And Moon Unit Zappa and a Kelly Carlin. It was terrific. We saw that. And then I was starving. I was like, "Hey, you guys want to go eat?" We went off campus. And you know me, I got a list of restaurants because I'm the fattest man on earth. So I'm like, well, let's go try a place called Plan Check, which I don't know if they've got a couple of places here. I don't know if they're outside of LA or not. But I had heard that their burger was great. So we went, and it was me and Heidi and Mel and Randy, and then Mel's niece Juliet had joined us. Juliet, let's talk about Juliet for just a second. Juliet works at Disneyland and looks genuinely like a princess. She looks like she could be Ariel or Belle. It was astonishing, her hair, her complexion, everything, and just all of us marveled at her. And it had to be uncomfortable for her after a while, when the 4 of us were all just like, "Yeah, you're like pretty." Stupid. Went over to Plan Check, had a burger with some ketchup leather on it. Randy got a pot roast, which just made me laugh my balls off. Really? Pot roast? All right. But it was delicious. Big hunk of pot roast with some mashed potatoes. It was a short rib pot roast, by the way. We had a good time. We watched the Dodgers. Randy's a huge Dodgers fan, so we watched them win Game 2 of their series against the Diamondbacks. Went back to the festival, and again, I met people, I talked to people, we hung out in the hallway, and then we went downstairs for the Pod Smash, which closes the Saturday show. And I wanted to see some stand-up. I thought to myself, you know what, maybe we'll watch a little bit of stand-up. We poked it, because I was going to leave. I won't lie, man. Because again, the previous night, I had been up late writing dialogue. I got up in the morning, and it was intense. Show day is intense for me, because I go up and I perform, and meeting people is the best part, but going on stage, it's exhausting. The learning, the thinking, it takes it out of you a little bit. And I know that seems like fucking childish because I wasn't lifting heavy fucking crates, but you can really mentally exhaust yourself. And plus, I'd only had a couple hours of sleep. The previous day, I'd only had a couple hours of sleep because I had to take Lenny to fucking Long Beach, go up and have that lunch, go to the gym, whatever the fuck. You don't care. Maybe you do. You care. Everybody cares. But that particular time, I said, well, we went down to Pod Smash, and I poked my head in, and Graham was on stage, so I'm going to watch Graham every single time. And then Graham brings up Jackie Cation. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to fucking miss Jackie. So we sat down. I saw Gil Martin, and I wanted him to meet Randy. So he was dressed up. He was doing his character. There's Congressperson Representative Richard Martin, which is phenomenal. If you've never seen it, you must see it. He plays a Republican representative, and he takes questions from the audience, and it is ridiculously good. So I said, oh, you're doing Richard Martin? He said, yeah. I go, all right, I'm going to stay and see this. So then Mark Maron walked up, and we talked. I talked to Mark and Paul. Paul and Mark are good friends, and I went up talking to Mark a little bit. And it was so funny because I always reintroduce myself. You know me, like I wouldn't talk to Kreischer, but then same thing with Maron. I'm like, well, he's not going to fucking remember me. That seems weird. And he walks up, and I go, immediately, he goes, hey, man, you know that Mark Maron thing. And I go, hey, Mike Schmidt, how are you? And he goes, I know you, fucking old school. You were one of the first guys on the podcast. And he shakes my hand. He goes, how's it going for you? I said, good. He goes, how'd your show go? And I said, great. And we made small talk. And then he talked to Gil Martin. And that also made me look cool to, like, you know, Randy knows who Mark Maron is. And he comes up and he talks to me. And then, again, like I said, it's so dumb to feel this way. But it was important to me that she see that I'm not a fake. That I'm not a poser. That these things are real. So I'm sitting there with Randy in the back row watching Pod Smash, and I watched Jackie fucking crushing it. And I have to admit, there was longing inside me. Like, I was like, man, I'd love the opportunity to go up for these people. But at the same time, what am I going to say to these people? I mean, I can't hang. Fucking Maron's here, and Kilgariff. Karen Kilgariff's going to go up, which is going to be fucking great. And I'm like, these are the hitters, because that's what they do. That's what Pod Smash is. They bring in all the hitters who have shows, and they let them go up. So I'm watching Jackie Cation kill it, and Graham Elwood comes up to me, and he's like, Schmidt, and he goes, you want to go up? And I said, excuse me? And he goes, you want to go up? Now, I just told you I was dying to go up, but at the same time, I was dying to not go up, because once I finished my show, my homework was done, man. It was time to just fucking coast into the home stretch and have fun meeting people and shaking hands and not worrying about things anymore. I've already proved myself. I don't need to prove myself again. But also, I wanted to get up there. I really, really, because, you know, the people who come to see me because they come to see me, but this is a room full of people who are just there for the festival. And this is people who don't fucking know me. So I have the opportunity to get up there and win some hearts and fucking minds, but at the same time, also, I got a chance to lose some hearts and fucking minds, man. I got to figure out if this is worth it. So in my head, it's going a million miles a minute, but my mouth decided to jump just in and just go, yeah. Because it's my old comedy training. People, you know, we were always told when you started comedy, just say yes. Even my first year, if a guy's like, hey, you got 45 minutes, you go, yeah. And then you fucking get the gig and you figure it out later. Because the whole important thing is to get the stage time and go up there, and you can make it work eventually. Just fucking get the gig and then prove yourself. So I just went, yeah. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'll throw you up last. I want you to close this. And I'm like, are you sure, dude? And he goes, yeah. I go, all right, well, how many people are before me? And he goes, I think like 6. He goes, it'll be after Jackie, it's Maron, and then Gil Martin, and Kilgariff, and Aaron Foley, and Brian Cook, and then you. And, I mean, that's a lot of names, dudes. That's fucking Gil Martin, that's Maron, that's Cation, that's Kilgariff. I mean, these are big fucking names. And then I started to get all panicked. And Aaron Foley. Aaron Foley's fucking beautiful, and as a comic, she's so good. So in my head, I'm just like, fuck, what did I just get myself into? I got to follow all these fucking people? So I'm just like, cool, I'm ready. And he walks away, and I go look at Randy, and I go, honey, I'm going up. And she's like, oh, honey, I'm so happy. And I go, all right, but now I really got to think. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to do, man. And she's like, okay, what do you need from me? What do you want me to do? And I go, nothing. I go, we're good here. I go, but I'm just, I'm sweating it a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you, so I'm going to worry about it for a bit, but I'm okay. I'm here. If I'm quiet, I'm thinking. So then I start trying to figure out what the fuck I'm going to do, because, you know, I'm not. I told you I have like go-to material that sucks. It just does. It's just I've outgrown it. But in my laziness, like when I did that Broke LA Comedy Festival, I told you I went up and I talked about going to the gym. Man, that's not me. That's not me anymore. There's no reason to do that fucking stuff. So I started scrolling through my head. I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? What could I possibly do? And there was a political theme to the show, and I used to work topical all the time, so I started writing bits, and in my head I go, well, first of all, I'm also going to talk about the festival, and I'm going to fry everybody here and do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and just segue into whatever the fuck I want, and my angle was violence. I won't lie, my angle was rage. It seems like an easy cop-out for me, but also I can do it well, and I knew I could. And also a lot of my stuff on Twitter has been leaning toward that. And you know me, I can fucking lean into that anytime I want. If I want to get aggressive, I can. So I don't want to, whatever. So I knew kind of what I was going to do. I had a general idea, and I figured when I get up there, I'll just fucking wing it and we'll see what happens. But also I'm coming up with structure. I have bits, and I knew I had bits that I had done earlier at my show that made fun of the hotel and made fun of the Podfest a little bit. And I just added onto those, whatever the fuck. The process was, I'm like, all right, I can do this. And I had a bunch of nervous energy. So I said, all right, baby, I'm going to take a lap. I mean, I'm fine, but and so I slid my chair back, and I stood up at the same time, and my chair caught on a cord for a microphone or a sound system. And I went to turn, and the fucking chair came with me, and I went right up over it, and I went just fucking ass up, and I hit the ground. I mean, I fell hard. I fell on my ass cheek, my elbow, and my head. Boom! On my left-hand side. And then I just laid there and I just started laughing. And Randy's like, oh my God, are you okay? And Graham comes running over and people saw it. And they're like, are you all right? I go, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, what the fuck happened? I go, I don't know. The chair cut a cord, whatever. And I looked at Graham and I go, you're lucky. I'm me. If I'm a civilian, I own this fucking place. And he's like, well, I don't care. It's not my fucking hotel. And I'm like, all right, it's a good point. So, I started walking in circles, and I saw listeners like, Eric Butterfield was there, who was, the original producer of this show and the real only reason I'm doing this fucking show. And I tell him, I go, are you leaving? And he goes, no. He goes, I just had to take a walk. And I go, all right, I'm going up. I go, I need allies in the room, man. I don't want to fucking eat it. And he's like, oh, no, I'm excited. And South Philly Paul was there, and I told him the same thing. And I'm like, I'm here. I'm just, and so I started to walk. I get nervous energy. So I started to kind of walk back and forth and breathe in, and I sat down, and then these comics go up, and Maron kills it. And I've never seen Gilmartin funnier in this character. He went up and he took questions from the audience, and I don't want to give his material away, but Jesus Christ, did it kill. It got ovation after ovation. And in my head, I'm like, I hope I can match this. I hope I can get up there and make it work. And it got down to Brian. Kilgariff went up, and she was fucking hysterical, and this was actually pretty funny. When comics would talk, they would do a setup, and I would predict the punchline to Randy. I didn't do it a lot because I wanted to enjoy the show, but if there was like Kilgariff had a great bit, and I looked at Randy and I just said something, and then Kilgariff, it was the out for the bit, and it was what she closed on, and Randy goes, you knew it, and I go, yeah, I go that's, as a comic, you look at that angle, you think, whatever the fuck. I don't mean to sound like a fucking pro Joe or whatever, but it's the truth. You try to think ahead of the bit to see what you would have come up with. And if you come up with the same thing a fucking genius like Kilgariff came up with, you're pretty proud of yourself, and I was. So I sat there, I waited, and this guy Brian goes up, and Brian Cook is the host of I'm pretty sure it's Brian Cook, off the top of my head. But he hosts Competitive Erotic Fan Fiction, which is a show here in Los Angeles. And then he gets up there, and he's crushing it. And he's like right spot on. You can see he's just a guy who works all the fucking time, and he's nailing it, and he's funny, and I've never seen him before. And then I start to get in my head a little bit. I'm like, fuck, you gotta go after this guy? This guy is fucking tight and together. And then he does a bit, I won't give it away, but it has a violence angle. And it's very much not what I was going to do, but it's about Trump, and it involves violence. And that was where I was going. And I'm like, oh, of course. Of fucking course. Right before I get on stage, this guy does the same thing. And that's not his fault. He's fucking killing it. I mean, he was crushing it. And it's my own fault for not having another bag of tricks. But I'm like, well, man, just get up there and fucking make it work. You can make it work. So Graham brings me up. He's like, we got one more comic. I go up on stage. And you know what? I set the tone right from the beginning, because then I lifted Graham up. Like, he hugged me, and I lifted him up and fucking carried him back to the microphone. And I think that established a tone of physicality, and it established a tone of aggression, like right away from me. And I dove in, and guys, look, man, you know me. I go, well, it went well, or I did okay, or I did, dude, I don't know if I killed, but I think I killed. Like, I feel incredibly good about my performance. I got laughs all the way through. My mouth went really dry in the middle of it because I didn't know where I was going. I was just going to fucking talk and see what the fuck happened. And when your fucking body just fights against you and goes, dude, what are you doing? but I just kept talking and I plowed through it, and then I got laughs, and that helped. That really helped. And I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to tell you the material. I know you right now. You're like, oh, what did you say? What did you do? Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to tell you because Randy taped the set. Now, I haven't seen it yet. She taped it with her phone, but she told me she taped the entire thing. The only difficulty is getting it off her phone and getting it to me. Because I'll tell you what, Randy and I were the same age, and it's that same thing where you run into tech bullshit. Like I told you, I've run into stuff where I can't do something, and I'm like, what? You feel like the oldest man alive. Or Randy has tried to send me the video like 3 times via Dropbox, and each time the folder's been empty. And I have to call her up, and I go, baby, there's nothing in here. I don't know what the hell's going on. And she's like, oh, my God, I'm sorry. And she sends it again, and it's not there. So I have to talk her through it. We got to figure it out. But once I get the set, I'll throw it up on YouTube, and you guys can all watch it. And I will also tell you this: she taped the first, I think, 10 minutes of the show I did, the 40-Year-Old Boy show, and I'll put that up as well. And I just got an audio recording of the show I did from Podfest. Now I'll tell you this: I haven't downloaded it because it came in an email and it said, "Hey, there was static all during your show, and we cleaned it up the best we could, but we're giving you our file and we're giving you the raw file in case you can do better." So I am going to contact my good friend Gio and see if there's anything he can do about it. But once that's all cleaned up and ready to go, that is going to go up on the Patreon page. I'll put, like I said, that preview clip that Randy did with the video will go up on YouTube along with the Pod Smash. But the live stuff, the live 40-Year-Old Boy show is going to go on Patreon for Patreon subscribers. So thank you, everybody. And but dude, Pod Smash, it was visceral, it was raw, it was aggressive. I was very physical and big. Like it just felt good. It felt fucking good. I mean, I loved it. I seized it and I grabbed it and I made it work, and I seamlessly tied it in with stuff from this show. And you'll hear it, you'll see it, and you'll be like, Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, it gave me faith that I can do short sets. It made me understand that I should go out. And also, I did this with, in my mind, I did it with Kilgariff and Foley and all these hitters in the room. I mean, Marin had already left. Fucking Gilmartin had bailed. But I wanted to be, that was the things I wanted to be funny in front of people that mattered. And then I came off stage, and of course, Karen had left, and Aaron was gone. Now, I should tell you this. I don't know if Karen and Aaron left in the middle of my act. I don't know if they fucking hated me. I have no fucking idea. That could be true. Or they might have just left because it was late on a fucking Saturday night and they wanted to go home, which I totally get. They'd been there all fucking day. But I came off stage and I talked to fucking that Brian Cook guy was great, and Brandy Posey was there, and she's so funny, and she was like, that was great, and everybody was very complimentary and fun, and audience members. This is the fucking, again, because people, they don't know me, they don't know who the fuck I am. So I'm the last guy. The show ends, the lights go up, and people start walking, and they all walk up to me and they're like, great set, that was really good, that was so good, and that, of course, I felt fucking amazing because all these other fucking great comics had been up. And then I just floated around for a while, listening to compliments and talking to people and having a good time, and it was the fucking best. The best, man. I loved it. I just, and again, to do it in front of Randy and with Randy, and Randy got in the car, and then we came back to the house, and, we got home about 12:45, 1 o'clock, and then we finally got to sleep at 4. And I had a panel the next day at 12, and Randy was like, hey, would you mind if I slept in and I met you there? And I loved it. I loved that it was that she could just ask that, and I was like, yes, of course. I went Sunday to go do my panel. It was me and a guy named KC who runs some I couldn't even tell you. He has like 5 podcasts that are like serial podcasts with actual actors. He works with Lawrence Fishburne, and I'm like, why am I on the panel with this fucking guy? So it's me, him, and Chris Mancini, and this guy's got tremendous answers with brilliant stuff about narrative podcasts. And then they asked me, and I'm like, look, I apologize, I don't have any insight really, because I just turn on the microphone and I talk. I tried to let people understand that, because again, this is a magic trick. I wish I don't have a script. I don't have anything. It's all in my head, and whatever the fuck comes out, as indicated by this fucking show, as we run into fucking forever. I'm talking about nothing. But I said, listen, if you listen to what I do, or if you want an example of what I do, I'll open up the microphones and just start talking. Eventually I'll hit a point where I get a story. And I did talk a little bit about technique. I said it was easier when I had Lily here, because I could be talking and really mining for humor, and then I would segue into a story, and I would know that was the right thing to do. I said, here I kind of I find myself talking a lot more and meandering a bit because I don't have a structure. And now even with Lily, there wasn't a structure, but there was a structure in that she'd laugh and it would lead me into certain directions. Now I just fucking talk. Now this is like the purest form of just fucking talking, but that's fine. I mean, I whatever. So I tried to explain that to people, and I didn't think we'd have anybody in the fucking panel. There was like 20 people there, and they had questions and answers, and they were nice, and they met me, and they came up and asked about voiceovers, asked about, anything I'd done. It was really cool, and I enjoyed talking to people. And I should tell you this, there's a podcast lab, too, that they have there at the show, at the Podfest. They have it every year. And it's a bunch of people who do their own podcasts from the podcast lab. They encourage podcasters to come and bring their gear and interview people, just kind of grab guests. And they'll interview Dave Anthony or Marin, whoever happens to walk by, they'll get grabbed by an organizer. Well, every year I've been there, I've even had organizers grab me and go, hey man, why don't you come into the Podfest? And I'm like, great, let's do it, or the Pod Lab. So I'll go into the podcast lab, and I've stood there. And nobody's called me over. Nobody's even made eye contact or said, hey, man, we should talk to you. So I will literally whistle. I've done it the last 3 years. The last 3 years, I'll walk through the room and be like, and just whistle. And I'll walk slowly. I'll give them the chance to grab me. And then if I get from one door to the other door without them grabbing me, I just fucking leave. And that's it. You had your shot. I know that sounds arrogant, probably ignorant, but I just don't give a fuck. I mean, they've asked me 3 years in a row. They're like, you should go in there. And then no fucking podcaster's been talking to me. So I'm like, well, fuck it. If nobody wants to talk to me, I'll bail. And then this year, I happen to see some of the same people. Cheryl from Movies Made Me, I think is the name of her podcast. And Brendan, I should say Cersei? Is that his name? I think so. They had seen me in the hallways, a guy named Will, and they're always like, hey, I got to talk to you, man, up at the podcast lab. I'm like, great, I'm around. Like that's my standard answer now. I'm around. If you want to grab me, I have time. Just let me know. So it just so happened that this panel that I was on let out right by the podcast lab, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go take a lap and whistle. And I poked my head in there, and Cheryl was right there. She goes, oh my God, Mike. And she grabbed me for her show and then passed me on to Brendan for his show. We talked wrestling for like 25 minutes. And then I was on a show with Emily and another guy whose name I don't remember because I'm a dick, but it was a Super Mario Brothers Minute show. And their podcast, dude, what a niche. They watch the Super Mario Brothers movie with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, and their guests watch 1 minute of it. Like, they're so familiar with it, but their guests will watch a minute, and then they talk to their guests about that minute that they just observed. And so they had me watch a minute on a phone. And I wound up talking to Emily and her co-host, and we're going on and on. And I loved it. I mean, I just vamped with it. I said, let's talk about this movie. I don't know anything about it. And we talked about the video game, and I asked them real questions. And I thought the conceit was they were snarkily watching it and making fun of it. They fucking love the movie. That's the best part. They love it, and they just want to share it with people, and they want people to get their opinion and hear how they think it's crazy bad, but they don't give a fuck because they love it. So I did 3 shows, man. I was up there to do 3 podcasts, and I had my phone off. It's in my pocket. But I had a great time after the panel and the podcast, and I walk out. Now it's like 2:20, and I had my phone off because I'm doing a panel. So I turned my phone on. There's like 3 texts from Randy, and she's like, honey, where do I park? Like, could you kind of get a hold of me and let me, because I'm not sure. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. So I wrote her, I'm like, baby, with an exclamation point. I'm like, where are you? I said, you park at Pershing Square and you walk over to the Biltmore. And she goes, this could not have come at a perfect time. I'm getting off the freeway right now. And so thank God, I felt like an idiot, you know what I mean? Because I had my fucking phone off, and I'm doing shows, and she's in the car, and again, though, the initiative to just fucking get out and just hop in the car and drive down and get close, and even without hearing from me, she's like, well, I'll find it, I'll figure it the fuck out, which made me happy. So again, I text her where to go, and then I'm in the hallways talking to people, meeting people, walking around, and then she shows up. She went to the fucking table, got her own wristbands, and I'm with Mike Schmidt. They took care of her. She found me, and just put her hand directly in mine, and we walked around, and we saw Heidi and Mel, and we went upstairs to their room, and we had a fucking, Jane brought me a donut. Jane Lear, who's the fucking coolest. This is the weirdest thing. I got there Sunday. And I got off, I come in from the ground floor and I walk up the stairs and I turn the corner and Jane's right there. She goes, I brought you a present. She had no idea I was going to be there or turn the corner at that moment, but she literally had it in her hand, which makes me think maybe it was for her, but she decided to give it to me. I don't fucking know. But she goes, here. She goes, there's a donut shop and I brought you a peanut butter and jelly donut, which was fucking amazing. And so she gave me that. I tucked it in my bag. And after I did all my panels and all that bullshit, I met Randy. We went up to Heidi and Mel's room and I fucking wolfed down. We traded, I was like, here, try this donut. And then they had another donut upstairs and we ate that and we had a good time. And then we were going to go down to watch Never Not Funny because it was almost 4:00. Headed down there. It was Jimmy and Matt and Nikki Glazer. They fucking crushed it. Of course, they're hilarious. I did a I did a dumb thing. Show starts and Jimmy's on stage, and I literally walked down to my seat, but I walked directly in front of him, and he's like, "Oh, Schmidt, really find it," just because he's so fucking funny. And that show was great. We had a good time. I wanted Randy to see them too, because I told her, look, I was on this show for a long time, and I said it's just the funniest fucking guys in the world. Jimmy Pardo's the funniest man on earth, and she loved it. We had a good time. Nikki Glazer was really good, just a fun guest. I'd never, I don't have any experience with her. Certainly not on Never Not Funny, but she was a fan growing up. It's like Mulaney. She was a fan of the show growing up, and then she's on the fucking show, and she loves it. And you could tell how funny it was. They had a good time going back and forth. It was fantastic. After that, we hustled over to Doug Loves Movies. Now, look, here's the thing. Doug's a friend of mine. I like Doug very much. I think he's really funny. I just haven't heard a lot of his podcasts. Because I'm not a weed guy. At least I didn't think I was a weed guy until this week. Hey, is that a tease? Maybe it is. Stick around. I'll tell you exactly why I still think I might be fucking high with a contact high. Why I might be able to roll up a shirt of mine and smoke it. Hang tight. But instead we fucking dove into Podfest. So here's the... Oops, hold on. I'm bumping the new table. I'm facing east, bumping the new table. So we go to Doug Loves Movie. I was going to go. I was like, man, let's go eat or do something. And then I'm talking to fucking Shooter after the show, and he's like, what are you doing? Are you going to watch Todd? And I said, I don't know. I said, are you leaving? Where are you going? He goes, I'm going to hang around for a little bit, talk to people. That's the arm of my chair again. And there it is again. I said, well, you going over to Doug's? And he goes, probably not. He goes, I'm going to talk to some people here. And then, because Jimmy had no sleep. He flew in from Minneapolis to do Never Not Funny and literally didn't sleep. He told the story on stage. He just had a really long fucking day. So he's like, I'm gonna take some photos and say hi to some people and go home and fucking see my son and then go to bed. And I'm like, I didn't blame him for it. So we went to Doug Loves Movies. And now I normally, like I said, I would have just gone to eat. I wouldn't have gone to watch a Doug Loves Movies. I was having fun in the hallways, meeting people and saying hello. However, before I left Jimmy, he goes, you going over to see Doug? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, he's got Gilbert Gottfried on. I said, what? He goes, yeah, Gilbert's over there. And some other people around are like, what? Are you serious? And then he's like, then he's like, it sounded like I said, Lenny's like, then he's like, oh, maybe I let the cat out of the bag here. Maybe it's a surprise of some sort. But then we hustled over there because I'm not missing fucking Gilbert. And sure enough, Heidi and Mel were there. They saved us seats. And the guests on Doug Loves Movies were Sam Levine, Joe DeRosa, Neil Beakley, I don't know, who is the director of the documentary Gilbert about Gilbert Gottfried, and then Gilbert Gottfried himself. And it was amazing to get in there and see all the fans of the show and the clapping. They know the theme song. They know there's cues where they yell. They all bring the name tags to try to get chosen. It was fucking beautiful. Now, and it made me want to do the show, of course. And did I bother Doug with it? No, because afterwards Doug is talking to Gilbert and a bunch of different people, and that's fine, which is great. But it made me want to do the show. So eventually I'll approach him and see if there's a way I can do it. But it was worth it just to be in the room with fucking Gilbert because he was fucking hysterical. He's like, hey, can you tell a joke in the beginning and tell a joke, to get us going? And then Gilbert told a dirty joke. And I at the end of the show, I'll tell you this one, because at the end of the show, he goes, Gilbert, you got a joke to take us out? And he goes, all right. A man is in bed. And I'm not going to do the voice, but he goes, a man's in bed with a woman. Or a man is in bed. And he says to his girl, hey, flip over on your stomach so I can fuck you in the ass. And the girl looks at him and goes, excuse me, don't you think it's a little presumptuous? And the guy looks at the girl and goes, excuse me, don't you think presumptuous is a big word for a 3-year-old? Yes. And that was the end of the show. And then afterwards, they walked off stage and I had to talk to Gilbert. And I approached him and he's a tiny, frail little man. I mean, he is just held together by fucking rubber bands and kite string. And as I was walking to him, again, my giant bucket feet, I tripped on a cord and he literally got so wide. He's like, oh, like he thought I was going to fucking crash into him because he would have been a grease spot. I mean, he would have just fucking, he would have disappeared into me and I would have had to fucking go to a surgeon to dig him out of me somehow. But luckily I avoided the embarrassment of crashing into him or falling on the floor. But I got to tell him, I'm like, look, I've been a huge fan your entire career, like since the MTV promos. I saw you at the Improv in 1988. So fantastic. Thank you for your work. And I got to say all that. And Randy, before we approached him, she's like, well, she goes, I'd really love to tell him something. I go, well, come with me. And she goes, well, no, I don't want to bother him. And I go, fuck that. I felt that way about Kreischer, but I wasn't going to feel that way about goddamn Kilgariff. Did I mention it? I didn't even tell that story yet, did I? All right, fuck, I'll tell that. But we went up to Gilbert and I had to talk to him. I made sure I fucking talked to him. And I told him what was up and he was fucking great. And then Randy got to talk to him. She took his hand and says, I have to tell you this. And I guess he did an episode of Wipe Swap, and she said it's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. He swapped wives with somebody, and he was just he was mean to her, whatever the fuck, and he was just like, oh, thank you. He was so gracious and wonderful and nice, and then receiving people, signing stuff, taking photos. And then Randy came over. She's like, I got to talk to Gilbert. Oh my gosh! And I go, yeah, you always walk up and talk. That's what you want to do. Do it. Let's do it. Because like I said, I had learned that, but because I hadn't talked to fucking Kreischer. But then once I had done my show and I'd done my bona fides, and I found Kilgariff in the hallway Sunday after my panel, and after that on the way to Never Not Funny, and she was standing in the hallway with Brandy Posey and a guy named Steve. And I stood there and I waited, and they finished talking, and she looked at me and I said, Karen Kilgariff, I apologize. I go, my name's Mike Schmidt. Huge fan. I said, I saw you at Largo with Mary Lynn a million years ago, and the podcasts are amazing. You know, you Want to Ride and the Murder Podcast. I go, you just do such great work. You're writing. I go, on Twitter, you're amazing. I said, I have to come to you and tell you how good you are, and thank you for it. And she was unbelievably gracious and nice and friendly. And I said, I was at Podsmash last night. I didn't want to approach you last night because you were doing your show, and then I was going on after you. And Brandy, it was really cool to have Brandy there, because then Brandy goes, I can vouch for Mike. He's one of the good ones, and he's really funny. He killed last night. And I go, yeah, I came off stage and you weren't there. And she goes, oh my God, it was so late. I had to get out of there. There was nothing I could do. So then, could it have been a lie? Maybe, but she truthfully said, we did our show and I was so exhausted. I finished my set. And I talked to Erin, and we just got out of there. She goes, I'm really sorry. I wish I could have seen your set. I go, well, I was happy it went well, but it doesn't matter. We're here to talk about you. And I was charming and funny and just nervous enough to where she thought it was endearing. And I was so happy to talk to Karen. But I just decided after the Kreischer thing, I'm like, fuck it, talk to everybody. I talked to Karen Kilgariff. I talked to Joe DeRosa after fucking Doug Benson to tell him how great he was, because he was funny on the show. Now, did I politic these people to get on their podcasts? Probably not, but I was in front of them at least. And I let them know that I existed. So that was pretty cool. And I talked to Gilbert, and it was really fun. So after that, we wound up splitting. And I said to Heidi and Mel, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go off campus? You want to eat? But then there was a Q&A directly after Doug, a Q&A with Graham and Chris and Dave Anthony. And they talked about the next Podfest. And will there be another Podfest? I have no idea. That was what I got out of the Q&A, because what they did is they bumped Todd Glass's show to a little later so everybody would come to the Q&A. And Chris Mancini, there's my chair again. Chris Mancini announced, hey, man, we think it's going to happen again. And the place erupted and went crazy. And immediately Dave Anthony started shaking his head, which was not a good sign. And then Graham Elwood went, hey, man, you know what? We had a party on Friday, and we talked to some sponsors, and I'm not going to be like Chris and say it's definitely going to happen, but you know what? It looks pretty good for next year. We're pretty excited. And everybody kind of moderately claps. And Dave Anthony goes, nope, it's absolutely not happening next year. He didn't really say that, but he just kind of went, yeah, I don't know what these guys are talking about. And he got a big laugh. And he goes, but I would say that this is probably the last one, so let's act like it's the last one. And they got raw, man. They talked a lot of stuff about the other podcast festivals and how hard it is to compete with them. And it was crazy. It was really in depth and really interesting and really behind the scenes. You could find out a lot of the stuff they were doing. But I waited and watched, and afterwards I hope it happens again. I hope it does. I mean, it is truly my favorite weekend of the year. I get to see all you guys. I get to perform, and I get to actually pretend like I'm in show business. Although, the Podsmash set showed me that I should be doing this more often, and I know you guys hear it all the fucking time, and you're always very encouraging, and you write me emails, but like I said to Shannon, and this is the annual, hey, I can really do this. Now, do I take this boost of confidence and do good things with it, or do I continue to hide in my goddamn apartment weekend? Because after Podsmash, I did walk off. Like I said, Karen and Aaron were gone, but Brandy was still there, and that Brian Cook guy was there, and he's like, hey, man, I got a show at the Virgil every week if you want to come by. I said, well, yeah, I'd love to come by and watch the show. And he's like, well, no, I'd want you to do it. I go, well, it makes more sense if I come and watch it, because it's ignorant to try to just do a set there without you, seeing me. He goes, I just saw you. And he started laughing, and I go, yeah, I guess that's right. I go, but it's not shitty to try to do your show without ever attending. And he goes, I don't give a fuck. He goes, come on out. You contact me, send me an email, whatever. Find me on Facebook. And so he invited me to do a show at the Virgil, and you do that, and more people see you, and you actually care, and you go out and you do your stuff, and I'm excited to dive back into it. I mean, I want to. Will I do it? I hope so. I really want to do it. We'll go ahead and make it work as best as we possibly can. But at Podfest, I was sailing, man. I went up to people and I talked to them, and I made sure to tell them what was what, and then we went to eat. After the Q. Well, I should tell you this. After the Q&A, I went to Chris and Graham and Dave individually. And I hugged each of them and I said, listen, man, you have no idea how important this weekend is to me. And they go, no, well, you tell us all the time. And I go, yeah, I understand that, but this makes me look like a hitter. You know, it puts me in the elite when you put me on a festival with these kinds of people. And all of them were gracious. And they said, you know, we wouldn't have you if you didn't deliver. I mean, your fans come. They come to the show. And that's a huge compliment to you guys. The only reason they keep booking me is because people keep paying to fucking see me. If I you know, they would throw me aside if they didn't need me. And you guys make that happen. Thank you. It's incredible, and you honor me with that. But like when I told Graham, thank you for putting me on Podsmash, because it puts me on a level with these people, and it makes other people see me on that level. And he's like, well, you're on that level. Just fucking tell yourself, convince yourself you're on that fucking level, because you are. He goes, I put you on last for a reason. I knew you would roast this fucking place and burn it down, and it would be fucking hysterical. I know you. I know what you can do. It was phenomenal. So to go up to them after their Q&A, because again, this is 6 years of their lives they've been involved in this, and they've worked their fucking asses off and scraped and scrimped and called. I can't even imagine. I didn't even want to book 2020. I've talked about that. I didn't even want to book 2020 and contact comics and try to get all their avails and their comps and shit like that. I was chasing people all the time, and that's 2 fucking comedians to do a 20-minute set. These guys are chasing fucking 35 podcasts to do a 3-day festival, 40 podcasts, however the fuck many. And comics for Podsmash and venues and cash bars and open bars and food, and Jesus Christ, what a fucking accomplishment. What a goddamn accomplishment. And whether they do it again or not, it's something that they can hang their hat on. For 6 fucking years, they drew people to come to Los Angeles, to fly from all over the world. I met Dave from Australia. I met people from England. I mean, it was just fantastic. And all of you people, Kilt Bill and the Webbs and Charlene and Cameron and the Stiegels and fucking Rebecca and Alice Fraser. Alice Fraser from Australia was there. You know, I saw her in the hallways and we'd talk periodically, we'd catch up. But then, man, at the closing party, because here's the thing, after the Q&A, we bailed. We went to go eat. We went to a Chinese place. It was me, Randy, Mel, and Heidi. And then we came back to the hotel and there was the after party rolling. And I was just going to say some quick goodbyes, but I went up there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Taking photos, having fun. Alice was there. And Alice, dude, when I saw Alice Fraser, when I met her, you know, I talked about her on the show. This is 4 years ago. She was this wide-eyed, I don't want to say kid, but she was a comedian from Australia, but she'd paid her way over here, and she was so thrilled that she got to ask Mark Maron a question. She was just this new girl, you know, new woman to the scene. And now, 4 years later, dudes, not only does she have her Tea with Alice podcast, she's been named a co-host of The Bugle. I mean, that was Andy Zaltzman and fucking John Oliver. Well, John left and they've done rotating co-hosts. Alice is a co-host on the fucking show. She's a giant star. I mean, she's on television in Australia. She's working in England and Australia, putting on her one-woman show all over the place. And I got to see her at the after party. And she was really great. She came over and she hugged me. She's like, you were fantastic. We took a bunch of photos with people. We met people. And after Podsmash, you know, it opened me up to a whole new group of people. They came up. There were people who came up to me literally and they're like, I was scared to approach you. I said, why? And they go, well, after last night, I mean, it was so aggressive in the things that you said. Like, were you serious about what you said at Podsmash? Like, did that stuff happen? I'm like, yeah. And then they said, yeah. And then other people were like, we saw your shows. It was just really raw. Like, I didn't want to come up to you. And I go, why? Come up to me. I'm cool. I'm a nice guy. I mean, I tell stories on stage and stuff happens. But I mean, I'm me. I'm still me. And there was a guy, Gary, from New York, and just a ton of people who came up that I didn't even fucking know, and they wanted to introduce themselves and tell me that I was funny. I met Dennis and Joel from a podcast. I think it was Joel. It might have been Josh. Could have been Josh. Might have been Joel. And if they're listening, because they told me they would, they're laughing right now because I kept calling Joel Josh and then calling Josh Joel. And by the way, Josh and Joel are the same guy. But and this guy looks at me, he's like, how do you remember everybody's name? So then I just started fucking his name up and calling him Joel and Josh instead of whatever the fuck. I'm a jerk. But they were great. But Alice Fraser, she came up to me and you know, I hugged her and I introduced everybody to Randy and Randy met everyone and it was so fucking cool. And I pulled Alice aside. I said, do you know how impressive you are? Because she did me a solid a few years ago. She told me, she's like, she said, you matter. You know, she told me that. She made me feel that at the podcast festival because I was at a low point, you know, and she told me you matter. And so then I did the show where I talked about her, you know, and I was like, Jesus, because it really to have somebody of that quality tell you that you matter, that you're good, was very important. So I took her aside at this year's festival, and look, I don't think I'm a quality person and I'm good, but I'm not trying to say I'm the same thing. But I said to her, I go, do you know how impressive you are? And I said, I don't know if this means anything, but I'm proud of you. I said, when you were here 4 years ago, you were walking around and introducing yourself to everybody wide-eyed, and you were just arriving on the scene. I go, 4 years later, now look at you. I said, look in a mirror. I go, you cut a swath through this room. You're a presence, and you're talented, and you know it. Your confidence level has grown in such a fashion. I'm proud of you, and I'm proud to know you. Like, I got to tell her that, and I felt great about it. And she was really nice, and the closing party was so phenomenal. And it's funny, these dudes are like, well, because I meet new people, and they always want to know where I came from. And I'm like, look, I was on Never Not Funny for a year, and the only reason I'm doing the show is because Eric Butterfield called me and offered to do all the work. That's totally true. Otherwise, I who knows what the fuck my path would have been. But Eric Butterfield made sure that I did a fucking podcast. And I don't ever want him to get fucking swallowed up. Lily was an amazing producer for a very long time. And, she made the show better. She made the show a different animal than it was with Eric. But without Eric schlepping his equipment out here from fucking Riverside and making me do a goddamn show, you and I aren't talking. I'm not talking, and you're not fucking listening. I might have done some other weird incarnation, but I don't think I would have ever found this path. And I told Eric, I love you. I said, you made this fucking happen. And he looks at me and he goes, I know. I'm like, fuck you, you dick. But he's not wrong. He knows. I hope he knows it. I tell him every time I get a chance. So it was phenomenal. I mean, we just had a great time at the closing party. We saw everybody. We hugged. We saw Graham. We saw Chris. And like I said, I saw all these people and took photographs and Jane, whatever, everybody, thank you so much. Anybody who came to my show, anybody who came up to me in a hallway, anybody who had anything good to say, and any new listeners, any of you people who met me and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and tackle this guy's show this week, you're the best. Thank you. I hope you stick around. And if you want to take me up on that offer with the 5 episodes, man, I'll fucking tell you exactly which ones they are, and find me and then tell me. And then Sunday, we left Sunday night. And I was with Randy, and we were in separate cars. Like I said, she had met me there. So in my head, I was driving, and I was reminiscing about the weekend. And I'm like, man, you know what? I wish Lenny could have been here. So why didn't I invite Lenny to this? I said, oh, yeah, I took Lenny to Long Beach on Friday because he had a cruise over the weekend. But it would have been cool if he, and then all of a sudden, it's 12:45 a.m. I've been up since fucking 10 after having to get to sleep at 4:30. And the previous day, also 5 hours of sleep. It's always a whirlwind weekend, but you try to catch up on some rest. But I was excited to go home and just fucking climb into bed with Randy and sleep in the next day till I had to be at the gym at 10. And at 12:45, I pulled up to my apartment, and in my head I went, why did I invite Lenny? Oh, yeah, Lenny's he's on a boat. Yeah, I took him to Long Beach on Friday. Oh, when he comes home, I can't wait to, oh my fucking God, I've got to pick him up at 4 a.m. Monday morning, I had to go and get him. I had to, I don't have to pick him up at 4. I pick him up. He gets off the boat at 7. But for me to get to Long Beach, I've got to leave at like 4:45 because otherwise I'll be in traffic. And I refuse to be in traffic. I'd much rather get there an hour earlier and sleep in the car than sit in fucking taillights. No dice. But it made me laugh. I mean, it's 12:45, and then Randy and I said, I found a parking spot for her, and I saved it. She parked on the street, and then we went into the house, and I told her what was up. We got in the house. It was about fucking 1 o'clock. And of course we can't. I mean, we're not just going right to sleep. So I didn't get to bed until 3. Well, I mean, I didn't get to sleep until 3:15, 3:30, and then I set the clock, and I got up at 4:30. I got an hour. I get to bed at 3. I got an hour and a half of sleep, and then I had to go pick up Lenny. And Monday was a big day, man, because I had the gym, then I had Shannon, and then fucking Monday Night Football was huge Monday because it was the Bears. And look, the Bears are awful. We know this, right? But they're not really that awful. I will fight you if you tell me they're awful. Maybe I won't fight you, but I'm here to tell you that they're not that bad. But Lenny had said to me, he's like, hey man, what are you doing Monday for the game? Because folks, I don't know if you know this, but the Savior has arrived in town. Oh, he's been there since April, and he's been wearing his uniform since July, but he's not had any action. He hasn't been able to show his wares. Of course, I'm talking about gunslinger, hotshot, new fucking quarterback in Chicago, Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, that's right. Mitch fucking Trubisky, number 10 in your program, number 1 in your heart. The Bears fucked around and didn't play him the first 4 weeks of the season, even though he looked great in the preseason. They're like, nah, we got a plan. What's your plan? To fucking run an emu out at quarterback and have him throw picks? Because that's what the fuck happened. So the Bears are 1-3. They're a fucking disaster. And they're like, hey, we're going to give the kid a shot. Finally, play the fucking kid. And it's going to be on Monday Night Football, national TV. And Lenny's like, we're in. We got to watch this, right? And I go, yeah. Well, Lenny has a friend's house that he usually goes to. And he's like, look, if you want to come to this with me, that'd be fucking great. But I'm going to have to ask permission because it's kind of a tight club. And I said, yeah, of course, I'm in. If he says yes, great. If not, maybe you can come to my house. But if not, also, I've only slept 2 fucking hours all goddamn day. I don't mind snoozing in a goddamn chair and watching it at my house. So he finally gets a hold of me at like 3 o'clock. He's like, no, man, you're in. We're going tonight. Now, I'll tell you this. I'm not going to say where it was, and I'm not going to say who it was. It's going to be kind of a vague story because you'll find out why. I don't even want to say because. But Lenny's like, yeah, pick me up. So I grabbed him at 5. We went over to the games at like 5:30, so we were cutting it really close. Yeah, actually, it was 4:45 I grabbed him. So I grabbed him, and we headed over to this place. And we show up, and this place is a fucking... it's a house of a guy, and it's fucking awesome. I mean, it's a really... You've heard of a man cave? All right, imagine a man house. This fucking house had like 12 TVs, all of them like 50-inch or more, mounted on the wall. In the living room, it's got 4 television screens and 4 recliners lined up all in a row, along with a couch and then other fucking seats. And then above the bar, there's 2 TVs. And then there's TVs in the living room. There's a TV outside on the fucking patio. And that's where we went to watch the game. We walk in to watch it, and we meet all these, I get introduced to these fellas, and they're all really cool guys, and everything was fun. And there's food, and there's just, it was really great. The guy, dude, in his garage, he's got a fucking, you ever go into a 7-Eleven and they got that standalone cooler with soda in it? Or like, like a Ralph's or a grocery store, and it's right by the, he's got one of those. He's got a standalone cooler stocked with fucking soda and water and beer. And I hadn't slept, so I fucking tanked up on Pepsi. I drink 1 soda every 2 months. I drink 5 cans of Pepsi at this guy's house. But more than the TVs, and I should say there was baseball on the TV, there was hockey on the TV, there was football on the TVs, all throughout the house. You can go see whatever you wanted. Also, on a couple of TVs, there was just Madden and NBA 18 and hockey 2018. There's people just playing video games. People don't give a fuck about those, the real sports that we're on, and they're actually online playing games. And because there's 12 TVs, they're all fucking just in action. And, there's food. I meet guys. We're laughing. We're having a good time. But I will tell you this. Holy fuck, the vice in this place. It was an awesome fucking man cave full of sports and food for me. But the booze was rampaging. Like Lenny brought a bottle of fucking Glenlivet. Is that how you pronounce it? Glenlivet? Glenlivet? Scotch? That bottle got killed, and then Lenny opened more scotch. I was there with a bunch of veteran fucking partying dudes. Everybody smoking cigarettes. Everybody drinking. Just debauchery and degenerates. But I will tell you this, more importantly than all of that, this joint, and that's an appropriate word, was like a Willy Wonka weed house. Look, I've seen joints, okay? But there were joints that were the size of fingers, like Vienna breadsticks. Ganella breadsticks, I should say. Fucking Vienna sausages, just thick. And there was there's boxes of them. There was, and guys would just smoke weed, and these were comics. Like comics would show up, and a dude walks in. I don't want to say his name, but I go, hey, I opened for you at the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach like 30 years ago. Like 20 years. He's like, oh, okay, man, what a memory. This is the best thing. Like anybody would walk in, I go, I know you from this, I know you from that, and they'd go, do you smoke weed? And I go, no. And they go, that's why you fucking remember all this stuff. But it was, the weed smoke was unbelievable. Like I put up my phone to film it wafting past my face, like if you were on a ship on a foggy sea. And I was telling Randy, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. I go, dude, I had a headache. Within 15 minutes, I got a headache from it because it was potent, powerful. And not only, dude, I went over to this one table, and these dudes are just there, and they had a pile of dope. Not like, my mom used to have a fucking box with a machine, and she had a rolling machine and fucking papers and a cigar box that had her dope in it. Dude, these guys, this was a full tabletop, and when I saw my mom's weed, it was in a bag and it was loose, unless she had Thai sticks. It was just loose weed that she'd roll into fucking papers and roll up a joint. dude, these guys had like, look, I don't know the lingo. I don't know anything about it. And look, any memory or any knowledge I had of this is completely erased from inhaling fucking weed smoke all goddamn night. But would they be called nugs or nuggets? Just big fucking Nabisco shredded wheat size chunks of dope and weed just sitting in a pile on the table with joints and bongs and pipes and every other contraption you could think of, and torches. I mean, because not only are they smoking weed, but then there was, this guy he did something. It was, dude, I can't even explain the process. It was as complicated as an athlete's handshake. That's what it was, just because, like I said, I knew dope. You put it in paper, you rolled it up, and you fucking smoked it. But these dudes, there was like water in a bottom chamber, and then you put something in the top, and then you torched it. And I thought it was, because I went to the dispensary in Denver and they had wax. So I didn't know if this was wax. So I asked this dude, I go, what is that? I go, that's not, I mean, is that wax? And he goes, no, this is called shatter. And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, it's called shatter. It's like the quickest way to distill from the plant the high. And I go, but like in what, like how does it work? And dudes, he busts out this fucking, again, because to them it's all shorthand, but I don't have a fucking clue. I mean, like I said, I Cheech and Chong roll a joint, their van fills with smoke, the end. My mom has a cigar box full of what looks like oregano and hides it under the couch, the end. But these fucking dudes, you know, there's piles of nugs and they got the the shatter, whatever the fuck, shatter. And he's like, here's how it works. And then I all of a sudden you just hear boom, ba, loom, ba, doop-a-dee. Two of these fucking midgets, orange-faced midgets come out and dance. And they explain to me how, you know, what do you get when you put weed in here? And they fucking got handheld torches and smoke. And I could barely see the games. And look, by the way, the Oompa Loompas may have been there or they might not have been. I could have absolutely hallucinated it from just living in a fucking joint the entire time. I think it's Up in Smoke. There's the cover of their movie. It's Cheech and Chong are actually rolled up in a joint. That's what I felt like. I was just, and I'm watching again, I'm there to watch the Bears. And I thank God I'm watching on the patio, because if I'm watching inside, fuck it. I pretend I'm on the team. I might think I'm in goddamn uniform, for fuck's sake, because these dudes, I was just, it wasn't even like I was lightheaded or contact high. I just got a headache and it was just hitting me. It was just that smell. It's just in the air and it's happening. And whether it's dope or shatter or fucking pasta, whatever the fuck they had, for some reason it was there and it was in excess. And it was great. It was phenomenal. I mean, I've been invited to go back too. That was the best part, is like I said, Lenny had to clear it with like 3 dudes and get a fucking thing. And I showed up, and here, by the way, here I am talking about it on the fucking air. Probably is going to get me banned. But I walked through the house, again, it's people with money have different lives. I go in the backyard and he's got a full basketball court. He's got a pool and a hot tub. In the living room, he's got a full fucking grand piano, a drum set, guitars, bongos, memorabilia on the walls, sports memorabilia, signed headshots. I mean, it was just phenomenal. I mean, everything about it was that thing where you're like, oh, this is what it's like to be fucking successful. And it made you dream on it, where you just, and again, when I was a kid, we'd play Sega all night long. Me and my brothers would stay up and play Sega, and my brothers would smoke, unfortunately, but I mean, there'd be pizza and we'd be laughing, and that's what this was, but it was for grown-ups, and I fucking loved it. Because again, I told you I don't go and do a lot of camaraderie stuff. I don't get out of my house. I sit in my house and I fucking stare. And to go to the Podfest all weekend and then to go Monday to this thing, even though I wound up floating away on a goddamn, it was like, there's a fucking Young One scene where Neil smokes a joint at a party and then he flies away. He just like, that's what I felt like, dude. I walked into this joint and within 45 minutes, I wasn't even touching the ground. I was just floating around. And thank God I watched outside because there was enough dope and cigarette smoke inside to just give you immediate paraquat cancer. Outside, it was there. It was evident, but the breeze at least kicked it away, and I could watch the game. And by the way, the game, look, I was really glad to have a contact high to watch that game, because I don't know what the fuck the Bears were thinking. The kid was great. He did everything he could do in the beginning, but they kept dropping the ball or fucking having weird penalties, and then the fucking offense was called poorly. It was just grim. The first half was fine. I think it was 3-2 at the fucking half or whatever the fuck the score was. And I'm like, all right, well, they should be up by 2 fucking touchdowns, but at least we can make this work in the second half. Vikings made some adjustments. They threw in a mobile quarterback. The Bears couldn't do anything with him. And the kid struggled a little bit coming out. He threw a pick at the end, but it wasn't his fucking fault. But I'll tell you what, he had it. He had the goods. He had everything you could possibly see. He was the guy who made it fucking happen. He was out there. You could see that they trusted him. You could see the fucking touch on his ball. You could see how fucking fast he had the laser throws, and he was right there. He wasn't overthrowing dudes. He was hitting them right in the fucking hands, and whether the guys caught it or not, it wasn't his fucking fault. Mitch Trubisky is the truth. Truth Bisky. That's what I fucking call him. Mitch Truth Bisky. And the fucking Bears are coming back, goddammit. Bear down. Now, there's a good chance that it all looked that way to me because I was really high. I'm not sure, because like I said to you, I could still be fucking high now. I mean, none of this could have even taken place. I'm not even sure I went to Podfest. I got a shirt in here that could get arrested and do fucking 3 to 5 years for possession. That's how fucking smoked out it is. Holy fuck. I mean, I might have hallucinated this entire thing. You know what? I got to be honest. I don't even think I went to Podfest. I didn't do the show, and there is no Randy. None of this is true. The only thing that's true is the truth of Trubisky, and I know I watched that fucking happen, but I had to watch it through a goddamn cloud of weed smoke, and I'm going to have to go get a doctor checkup because I'll tell you what, at this point, I need a service animal to survive, and I need to get a weed card just to watch football because these fucking guys were pros. You guys can get me at Mike at MikeSchmidtComedy.com. You guys can be my friend at Facebook.com/the40-year-old-boy. It seems like a weird ending. I should have ended with all the stuff where I'm thanking you guys for being my fans and loving the show and coming out to Podfest and supporting. I should have run down your names then. Instead, I got to talk about weed. Look at me. Because I was going to talk about the weed in the beginning, and then I flipped it around, and I fucking wound up talking about the goddamn Podfest because I wanted to talk linear. But in truthful, I should have talked about the fucking dope first. Here, I'll tell you what, in 7 years when I tell this story at the Podfest, I'm going to sit down and go, oh, I'm going to make some big changes in here. I can't tell it the way I told it on the goddamn show. I fucking flipped the narrative and screwed it up. Where was I? Oh, you guys can get me at Facebook.com/the40-year-old-boy. You can find me at Twitter.com/the40-year-old-boy. Did I say Mike at MikeSchmidtComedy.com? I think I did. That's where you can get me at there. And also I'm on Instagram and Snapchat. My name is Mike40YOB. That's Mike40YOB on Instagram and Snapchat. Please remember that our great friend Ryan Dirks does all the web stuff for this show. He's the coolest, he's the smartest, he's the best, he's the funnest. You can find him at Facebook.com/Ryan Dirks. Write him a note and tell him you want him to do cool web stuff for you, possibly. Our friend Giovanni Giorgio Peluso, super fan Giovanni, not super fan of me, but super fan of others, certainly. He's done all the cool-ass technical stuff. I'm going to have to try and have him clean up this Podfest thing. I haven't even listened to it because once I get, dude, when you send me an email that goes, hey, man, this is kind of scratchy with a lot of static on it, I'm like, man, motherfucker. I did a live fucking show for you and you fucked this up. I want to murder somebody. But I don't even want to listen to it then. I'm like, just throw it away, which is stupid. I'm sure it can be salvaged. And if anybody can salvage it, it's fucking Gio. And God knows he wants me to ask him another favor. What the fuck? But superfan Gio, not super fan of me, but super fan of others. You can find him. He's got several different podcasts. He's got his Pod Gods podcast. You can check that out. Also, please remember that he is the guy, the brains of the outfit, the guy, the driving force, if you will, behind all of the Loveline stuff. He's doing all the stuff for Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew, putting it all up there and getting it, salvaging it, finding it, and making it available to all of you. So go to Facebook.com/Giovanni Giorgio Peluso. Thank him for Pod Gods. Thank him for his work with us. And thank him for all of his Loveline work, because without him, it would be lost to the ages. And also thank him for doing our YouTube channel, which exists. You can go to YouTube and check out our stuff and get all that on there and listen and enjoy it and have fun. But that's and if you want to, again, you want to know those essential 5 shows, write me. Or don't, because then I would have to find 5 essential shows and send you to listen to them. But if you do, if you're new, thank you, welcome aboard, and I'll go ahead and hook you up if you've made it this fucking far. Jesus, I just looked at how long this fucking show is. So again, Superfan Gio, he's the guy to the YouTube channel, and he's the best. Please remember that David Hernandez does all of the music and the artwork for the show. He's phenomenal. I will tell you this, when I did the panel, I was talking about the narrative podcasts, and they were talking about logos and theme music and stuff. And I said, look, I got a guy who does that. He's a fucking cottage industry. I said, it's weird for me to do my show. And I explained the thing where I've told you guys where my life has become smaller. So I put the show off sometimes, and I don't do it till later. I don't do it till and because I've made it work, whatever. I'm still trying to overcome that a little bit. But I also have to do the show earlier so I can tell David what artwork to do. And it's funny because I told him, I go, the show's basically about Podfest. And he's like, well, what else? And I go, well, I also talked a bunch about the Bears and weed. And he's just like, oh, He goes, well, I can seize on that. And I started to explain to him everything that was going on. And he's like, dude, that's the thing. And I go, yeah, but the majority of the show is about Podfest. And he's like, yeah, but that doesn't really grab me, but fucking this other thing does. I'm like, all right, man, whatever. So we'll see what he comes up with. And I can't wait to see the artwork. I can only imagine what it's going to look like. But I also, I was telling them at the panel, I said, hey, I have a guy, I have to get my show done at a certain time because there's a watercolor painting that comes with every single show of mine. That's my artwork. And I could see people like blink, like, what? And then this woman raised her hand. She goes, excuse me, what is that? What do you mean? And I go, well, I said, I have a logo for the show, but every week the artwork changes. And I have my friend who does artwork. He does he's in a theme song and stuff. He also does music and cover tunes. And I said, but he does a watercolor painting that is the artwork for every single show. And I said, sometime, we're butting heads a little bit because he wants me to get the show done earlier, but I find that I don't like working earlier. But it puts him in a lurch and I can't ask him to do that. So I go, but if he needed to, he can turn around a watercolor painting in 3 hours. And then the entire room gasps because they can't fucking believe how talented David is. And he is, man. Don't fucking kid yourselves. You can go to facebook.com/David Mex Hernandez and be his friend there. Thank him for all of his hard work. If you want to thank him with money, cash, simoleons, ducats, you can go to artbydmh.com and go ahead and have him do cool things for you. Look, he's got Gycons, he's got Valscapes, individual pieces that are already done and ready for sale. But if you want him to do something specific for you, he can do it. If you want him to paint you on a field with an axe, chopping somebody in half, he can do it. If you want him to paint you having sex with a fair maiden, I'm sure he would do that as well. Whatever you want, he can make, he can create it, he can sculpt it, he can make it out of macaroni or fucking paint or mayonnaise or whatever the fuck. He prefers paint. I will not lie to you. But if you want macaroni and mayonnaise, then by all means get on board with the guy and tell him you want him to do that. However, I will tell you this. He is available at artbydmh.com for any and all paying gigs that you want to go ahead and get him to do and talk to him, send him for quotes and all that sort of stuff. Please remember, you can get David at artbydmh.com. That's artbydmh.com. This fall on The 40-Year-Old Boy. I have some serious questions about my portfolio.
Dig, man. I was looking at it, and it turns out, man, you have a lot of bread, man. And a lot of people don't have bread. So I gave it to some people, you dig? And they're doing their thing to help other people with their scene,
Wait,
man.
you gave my money to people?
Yeah, it's like an investment in humanity, man. Because we feel like the world and earth and people could use a lot more things like feathers, soft things, comforting things. And we thought feathers was the way to go.
Where is my money?
It's in a feather farm.
What the hell is a feather farm?
It's cool. We'll know in like 6 months.
The new season. Jimi Hendrix, investment banker. On the Mike Schmidt Podcasting Network.
Offshore accounts.
Want to remind you folks that I just had lunch with Drew Bennett. It seems weird that I just remind you of that. No, I had lunch with Drew Bennett today. He's a listener to the show from Boston. I've told many stories about him, including the fact that he ate all the avocado out of a salad when I was in Boston, and I never want to let him forget it. I'm going to put it on his fucking tombstone. But he was in town, and he's like, hey, he wrote me last week and said he was going to be here because he does fucking junkets. He was here for the fucking Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok. Hey, what's up with that Ragnarok? And I was like, all right, man, let's get together. So then as it got closer, he's like, hey, man, I'm going to have a weird window because I got a lot of stuff I'm doing, so I'll be around from like 4:30 to 6. And I won't lie. I read it, and I was like, nah, fuck. I'm the talent, man. You can't dictate the fucking time to me, what time I get to meet you. And so the day is today, which is Wednesday, and he's like, hey, man, let's, I'm leaving the event now or whatever the fuck. And I wrote him, and I'm like, you know what, man, day got away from me, so I'm probably going to have to not do this, because I'm in my apartment and still working on things, trying to figure stuff out. I've only recorded half the show, so probably I should get the rest of it done. And he wrote me back, and I could even see, dude, if you can see disappointment in a text, he's just like, understood, fine. And I felt like such a jagoff because it's like, this guy comes from Boston. He's only here for a couple of days. He asks to see me for lunch. And I always throw it out there. I'm like, if you guys are in town, hook up with me. We'll get together. We'll hang out. We'll do this thing. And here I am. I'm blowing the guy off just because I was being pouty about the fact that he only had a window of a certain time, and I had to bend my schedule to meet his. But also, I was just being fucking lazy. I mean, I was in my house, and I'm like, well, I got to finish the show. But I mean, did I really have to finish the show that fucking minute? I can go see a guy. So I sat there and I agonized over it. I killed myself, and I'm like, I should just go. Just fucking go, dude. Just get up, get dressed, and go. Because that's the thing. I'm sitting at my fucking house doing nothing. And then he texts me and he's like, hey, man, if I hear you were home, and I'll use the term he used. I don't know why he was quite this vulgar. But he's like, hey, man, if I hear on the show that you just sat home snapping the fucking carrot while I was in town, I'm going to be disappointed. But I guess I get it, whatever, da-da-da. And I'll have to admit, that even made me, like, more mad. Like I was like, well, fuck you. I mean, if I want to sit home and jerk off instead of coming to see you in for lunch, then I'll do it. But then that's just petulant child bullshit. And I'm like, well, fuck no. Because I was already fighting with myself about going, and I was getting dressed when that text came in. And I wrote him and I go, I was literally just considering, just making myself go. And he goes, ha, right. And I go, I'm not kidding. I go, but if you don't want me to come, because then I tried to put it around on him because I was pissed about the fucking snap in the carrot line, which I've never heard, by the way, for jerking off. That's a new one. And I was like, that's not one that's going to stay in my repertoire. Snap at the carrot's not one I want to have any history with. I don't think I'll ever use it anymore after this show, unless you come up to me and specifically ask me to use it. And why would you? I don't know. Hey, Mike, let's talk about jerking off, but only use this phrase. So I fucking did it. I got up, I got dressed, and I went to his place. And I thanked him. I go, look, man, this is fucked. I go, I literally was just going to sit in my apartment. I was being lazy. Thank you for letting me not be lazy. I'm glad he threw me attitude because I deserved it. What the fuck am I doing sitting around not doing something and going to see a fucking fan? Get off your ass. So we went and had lunch. I'm like, hey, man, I went to his hotel and I go, am I coming in? He goes, I'll meet you outside. And he goes, there's an In-N-Out up the street. I said, great. And we just fucking had a hamburger and some fries and talked and had fun. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I saw him. He's a good guy. He's been listening since fucking day one. I don't even know if he was on board for Never Not Funny, but he's been on board with this fucking show from day one. So why the fuck can't I get off my ass and go have lunch with a guy? Go have a fucking hamburger and shut the fuck up. I get so mad at myself sometimes. I'll talk myself into doing the good things. I'll say, oh yeah, just go do that, go do this, and then you won't do it, and then little things will come up. And look, I tell you guys all the time, hey man, I'm here, I'm accessible. Whatever you want to do, let's get together. And then a guy does it, and I'm not going to go. Fuck you, man. Get up and shut up. So I'm glad I saw Drew. That was great. And now I'm back home telling you about sponsors. Did you know we have sponsors for this show? It's true. We have, first of all, we have getthebutters.com. Those are cool. Those are great. They've got butters and balms and lubes. I keep saying they. It's our buddy Jerome. Getthebutters.com. You can use the code 40YOB to save money there on butters and balms and lubes and masks and bombs and fingers and toes and drool and gruel and any other fucking thing that rhymes with ool, pool, and a spool. You can get a fool, and you can go there and have a duel. Do that. Butters and balms and masks and scrubs and loofahs and heated gloves and scrubby dubbies, and they've got all that stuff there at fucking getthebutters.com. Use the code 40YOB to save as much money as you possibly can at getthebutters.com. That's our friend Jerome. He's making this stuff in his backyard. You know you want it. He's got a backyard. You know what's in his backyard? He's got a soap making place because he goes and steals fat from the fucking place like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. And then he's got a wood chipper in the back where he actually throws human victims. And he takes whatever the suet left over from running through the wood chipper and he turns that into a mask for you. Don't you want a dead skin mask? That's what Jerome did. You remember the song by Slayer, Dead Skin Mask? Jerome took it to heart. Got a wood chipper, saw Fargo, listened to Slayer, bought a wood chipper, and then saw Fight Club. He saw 3 movies. Fight Club, or he listened to 1 album by Slayer. He saw Fight Club, and then he said, I can do this, man. This is perfect. And he saw Fargo. He saw Fargo and Fight Club. That's what he saw, a couple of F movies, and then he listened to Slayer, and he said, I can make a business out of this. And he made GetTheButters.com, where dead people are turned into masks for your enjoyment, and you put it on your face for nourishment. And then he steals fat to make soap. He's the best. Jerome's our friend. Obviously, with this ringing endorsement, go to GetTheButters.com, use the code 40YOB. He's the man, and win and get some stuff. Now, here's the thing. I got to cop to something. We have another sponsor. It's a sponsor we've had in the past, folks. It's our good friend Fearful Jesuit over at the Paranoid Strain podcast. Now, I'm supposed to give this person, he's very nice. He jumps on board, Fearful Jesuit. He loves our show. I love his show. He says to me, you know what? Here's the new episode. Screen it, listen to it, learn it, and then tell your listeners about it for a month. And he buys a 4-week thing, and he's the best ever. That's right, the best ever. The best Jesuit I've ever done business with. Well, here's the deal. I did not get to listen to this month's episode just yet. He sent it to me, a week ago. Maybe 8 days ago, could be even longer. But it's been a whirlwind week for me, folks. As you've known, I've been getting ready for the show. I was in my head about what I was going to write for Podfest. Look, there's a lot of excuses here. The point is, normally this would be a 4-week plug, but it's going to be a 5-week plug. This week I'll plug it in general, but then once I get to dig my teeth into it, when I can really tear apart the episode and learn about all of the conspiracy theories from this month's episode, then I'll feel better about the fact that I've got Fearful Jesuit as a friend who has endorsed the show. If you go to Paranoid Strain, if you go to iTunes, the Paranoid Strain is available there, and is our good friend, like I said, Fearful Jesuit. He's got all sorts of amazing conspiracy theories. He spent the summer visiting conspiracy-related sites, ladies and gentlemen. He's armed and loaded. He's ready and loaded for bear. By the way, that's a conspiracy theory. There were people who were loaded for bear, and then the bears came and learned how to use guns and shot them all. That's what happened to the Donner Party. They didn't have to eat themselves. Bears came along, learned how to use guns, and shot them. But then, of course, Jesus came down and killed the gun-wielding bears, because that's the only way to kill gun-wielding bears is with some sort of miracle. The only way to kill gun-wielding bears is by divine intervention. So luckily, Jesus came down and took care of that. Now, see, is that the kind of stuff you hear on the Paranoid Strain? Absolutely not. I can tell you, I don't know what this month's Paranoid Strain is about because I have not had a chance to listen to it, but I do know that Fearful Jesuit does amazing work. He brings you the Paranoid Strain, something I can't do. I listen to him. First of all, I'm jealous of his fucking voice. It's amazing. And then he brings you all sorts of facts and interesting conspiracy theories. Again, he's talked about the sovereign states. He's talked about Posse Comitatus, all these different episodes. And now here's an episode again. I'm excited to listen. I just have not listened. And I know I just told a story about how I was sitting in my apartment today before I went to lunch with Drew, and I wasn't doing anything. And I probably should have listened then. And I did. I will tell you this. I took a shower and listened to the beginning of the episode. I had it on a speaker, and I'm like, all right, I'll listen to it in the shower. But then I went and checked the mail, and I turned off the speaker, and I forgot to jump back in. Regardless, I hope he's not angry at me. But it's a fantastic show. Here's the thing. Go listen to the Paranoid Strain. Listen to it. Review it in the iTunes store, and tell him that I sent you. Do not tell him I haven't listened yet. That would be a bad thing. But do tell him that you love the show. You heard about it from me. And he has surveys, he wants emails, he wants listeners to go ahead and contact him because he worries about you guys. You know, that's the thing, is you never call. Your dad and him worry. I mean, he teams up, Fearful Jesuit teams up with your dad to worry about you because you haven't called. But please, do me a favor, listen to the Paranoid Strain podcast. It's fantastic. It's so much different from what we do here. By we, I mean me and you, where I talk to you and you listen. Well, I guess he's doing that, really. But he also has a bunch of things. He's got a little kid voice. He's got a woman voice coming in. He's got different kinds of music. He's got a different theme song. It's so different. This is so bad that I haven't listened. But I'm looking forward to listening because I do like the show very much. I know it sounds like, oh, you're a shill and he's fucking plugging it. Well, no, remember last fucking month I listened to it and I told you it's something I would never think to do for myself. And then when I listened to it, I'm happy I did. Because I learned a bunch of shit that I hadn't known before, and I get to hear him do it fucking like a real broadcaster, and his voice is amazing, and it's soothing to hear somebody with a fucking script, all right? I won't lie. I mean, I just fucking talk. I do that thing where I talk in circles and make shit up, and I tell you stories, and I don't have anything written down, but it's cool to hear somebody with... I'd like to actually do something like this. I was talking to Mancini. Fucking Chris has a show. It's like a fucking sci-fi show. That's what he was talking about on the Narrative Podcast. I don't know, Tales from the Abyss or some shit, or Conversations from the Abyss. I said, I'd love to audition for a role in this. You know, I don't know if I'd be any good at it, and I'd audition truthfully because I don't want to just get cast. I want them to see if I'm any good. But the Paranoid Strain is very much, it's not a narrative podcast, but it is very well researched. It's about a certain topic, and you will always leave it knowing more than you did coming in. So please listen to the Paranoid Strain, review it in iTunes, tell our friend Fearful Jesuit that I'm on board. Do not look for Cowering Catholic. His podcast is over with. He is done sponsoring anything. But Fearful Jesuit is still there, taking care of business with the Paranoid Strain. Go review it in the iTunes store. Tell them I sent you, and tell them it's an amazing show. And write him and say, you know, ask questions and involve and engage and let him know that what he's doing is really good and it's got a future and it's something that he should continue to pursue because his voice is fucking great. The depth of research and work that he puts into the show is phenomenal, and he deserves your respect and he deserves your ears. So go ahead and give them to him. The Paranoid Strain in the iTunes store right now, and then make sure you review it and tell them that I sent you. And we did get the butters. And remember that our good friend David Hernandez is a sponsor of this show. Isn't that weird? Well, it is. He hasn't told me to stop doing this yet, so I mean, I assume he's still doing these. But he's doing caricatures on Facebook. He'll do a Facebook profile photo for you that's your character. Not a photo, it's a painting, really. What he needs from you is like a head and shoulder portrait, and anything more than that, it's going to cost more. But he needs he's doing a head and shoulder portrait, but he needs a photograph of you to go ahead and work from. Okay. He's cut the prices, as I've mentioned before. He's doing this for a limited time. I don't know how limited, because again, he hasn't told me to stop plugging this yet. You will receive a digital scan of a watercolor formatted for use as a profile pic on Facebook. It'll be 600 by 600 DPI. Write David for the prices. He prefers to use PayPal. You need to give a reference photo and an email address. That's what I was thinking. Please provide him a reference photo and an email address because he wants to paint you. And what I meant was head and shoulder portrait. He will paint your head and shoulders. Boy, the mic is weird. If I'm over here, it sounds different, but if I come over here, I sound louder. This is what happens when you face east. He'll do a head and shoulder portrait of you, but if you want anything more, like if you want to be, I'll tell you what, like if Fearful Jesuit wanted to be painted beating me to death for not listening to the episode this week, I wouldn't blame him. The cost goes up, however. So, I mean, Fearful Jesuit, if it's worth it to you to shell out a little more money to David to paint you beating me to death for not being able to listen to the episode this week. But come on, you got 5 weeks out of it instead of 4. Back off. You know, his next show is going to be a conspiracy about why I don't listen to his fucking show right on time after he's texted me and written me and told me, hey, you should do this. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like getting a text from Fearful Jesuit, because first the picture of Jesus pops up, and then smoke pours out of your phone, and then a heavenly chorus says something, and then you look down, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, is this Gabriel again? And no, it turns out it's Fearful Jesuit. And I've met Fearful Jesuit in person. I should tell you this. He looks exactly like the albino angel from that Tom Hanks movie that was a book. I don't know the name of it. It's one of the most amazing, or not amazing, but famous novels ever. And I don't know the fucking name of it. Dude, I'm the oldest man on earth. Oldest. You know what it is? I got mad cow from eating that fucking burger with Bennett. All right, so David Hernandez is doing paintings. He's the best. He'll do a head and shoulder portrait, but if you want to get painted doing anything else, like scolding me for not listening to the Fearful Jesuit, or if you want to have a photo of yourself putting a butter, a balm, a bomb, or a lube in your ass, he'll go ahead and paint it. But you got to go ahead and call him and negotiate with that kind of thing, or at least message him. Don't call him. Well, here's his phone number. Call him at this number. Don't do that. But many listeners of the show have gone ahead and used this service. You should be one of them. Contact David. I had to fight off a yawn there. Contact David and find out exactly how much he's charging. Like I said, private message him at facebook.com/DavidMexHernandez, or write him at artbydmh.com. That's ARTBYDMH.com. And he will be the guy who tells you what's what. Remember that Earbuds is available now. It's streaming and screaming and all over the goddamn place. You can find it, I think, at Amazon and iTunes Store, a bunch of different worlds. But go get the Earbuds documentary. Randy was like, I want to see it. And it was playing at the festival, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've seen it 4 times. And it's like 2.5 hours long. And I'm only in like 15 minutes of it. Why the fuck do I want to sit there and watch you talk to some girl in Japan? I don't want to watch Chris and Graham in the Outback interviewing a telephone repairman. Damn it, get to my part. Randy only wants to see me. And that's a lie. She wants to see the whole movie. But still, I'm with her and I want to see me. So go get the Earbuds documentary and enjoy it. And then tell me what I looked like then and how I look now. And contrast. And compare. Who wants to be an Uber driver? Who wants to be a Lyft driver? You? Well, of course. If you'd like to use my code for Lyft, this is all caps. Mike 720057. That's capital M, capital I, capital K, capital E 720057. Use that code for Lyft and earn while you learn. Will you be learning? I don't know. Earn while you lift. Ift while you lift. How about that? Earn while you learn. Ift while you lift. Want to drive for Uber? Of course you do, even though they now changed that fucking rule from 6 goddamn designated trips to 2. Way to go, 180 days of change, you fucks. However, they won't do that for you. You'll love it. So please use my code, and these are all lowercase. DJZW1YTTUE. That's DJZW1YTTUE. Use that Uber code, start driving in your town, and please remember that rewards are sometimes played off against whatever you earn in that amount of time, because we just had a guy who was driving, and it said he was going to earn a guaranteed $250 after 30 rides, or however many rides it was, and then he made whatever he made. I got the bonus for signing him up, and then he made like $260, and they said, great, you made your $250. When we both thought that he was going to be getting a fucking bonus of $250 after he made 30 rides. But in reality, and Lyft does this shit, and this is one of the reasons I stopped driving for Lyft as much, they'll be like, you're guaranteed $500 this week if you just do 30 rides. So if you do 30 rides, you make $500. They're like, great, good for you. And I'm like, well, where's my $500? And they're like, no, we told you you'd make $500. Now, the thing is, if you do 30 rides and you only make $300, they'll kick in $200. But they also take out their Lyft fees, and then the tips don't count for your earnings. So they subtract it from the money they'd keep. It's a mess. The whole thing's a fucking mess. So unfortunately, an Uber guy, he went and signed up with my bonus, and then after a amount of time, they counted his bonus against his earnings, and he'd already earned it. And I was frustrated, so I said, dude, I'll split this fucking bonus, the spiff I got with you. And he was very nice. That's our friend Michael Caldwell, by the way. I can go ahead and use his name because he said so. He's like, talk about it on the show and make fun of these motherfuckers. So here I am making fun of these motherfuckers. Michael Caldwell signed up, did a bunch of fucking rides and thought he was going to get spiff, and then they were like, yeah, congratulations, you made it. He's like, yeah, where's my money? Where's my bonus? They're like, no, you made it. I mean, it's just fucking Wile E. Coyote bullshit. And like I said, I get $100, and I said, dude, I'll send you 50. This is fucked. And he's like, no, man, save your money. Just make fun of it on the show. So here we are. We're thanking Michael Caldwell for making me $100, and then we're making fun of fucking Uber for dicking him around and making him think that they didn't, the fine print, dude. That's where they get you. Nobody likes the fine print, and nobody loves the fine print like Uber and Lyft. Holy fuck. That Lyft thing, man. It was like, make $400 for 20 rides. I'm like, dude, I can do that standing on my fucking head. So it actually took a while to get the 20 rides because nobody uses Lyft in fucking California, at least not as many people as use Uber. And by the time I hit the 20, I had a good week, actually. I made like $220. That's a good average, but I had one really long ride. God, how boring is this fucking conversation? But the bottom line is then my check came and they're like, yeah, well, we subtract our fees and whatever. I mean, I'm just like, you ass fucks. I thought I was just going to get $400, but I wound up making like 310 because after fees and then the tips, they counted against it. I'm like, you dicks, man. Why would you lie? Because they're a business. It's what they do. So they fucked Michael Caldwell, and you fucked with the wrong Caldwell. I'll tell you that. Because you know what he did? He told me. Aren't you guys fucking sad? Take that. Aren't you punished, man? He just fucking lets you have it. Michael Caldwell just Caldwell the fuck out of you by telling me. And here I am excoriating you on a podcast. And I think we're in the 5th hour that nobody's listening to. So you guys got off light this time. But if you do it to another listener, I'm going to bury you at hour 3 that time. And people will really...
Nothing lonelier than being trapped inside yourself. It's easier to hide when you pretend you're the nice. Women love a guy with a giant neck.
We are playing on a level that most will never see.